Board of Education meeting to order. It is now 7:01, and we are at the Nashua High School North Lecture Hall. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Mosher?
Yes, I'm here.
Mrs. Oden?
Here.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Here.
Ms. Hohensie?
Here.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Present.
Mr. Garino is here. Ms. Porter?
Here.
We have a quorum. We have everyone here. Mr. Mosher is joining us by telephone as he recuperates. Are you by yourself, Mr. Mosher?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Garino will lead us in the prayer, and could Ms. Sweeney lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Almighty God, we have the high honor and the serious duty of managing the educational institutions of our beloved city. In our common endeavors, may we find a spirit of unity and understanding which will enable us to face our multiple problems with an objective mind, with justice and charity for all, and that any and all decisions made by us will be for the betterment and greater happiness of all of our fellow citizens. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there anything that needs to be removed from the consent agenda? Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. I would ask that the Strategic Planning Committee meeting minutes of August 21st and 29th be pulled, and also that the Curriculum and Evaluation Committee minutes of August 20th be pulled. And would you like me to explain why, or we'll do that later?
Please, no, you can speak to them now.
Okay, so the Curriculum and Evaluation Committee minutes, I believe they contain disparaging comments made against two former employees, and I want to have those statements corrected. And do you want me to continue?
I think you had two on the strategic plan.
Right, but do you want me to explain that?
No, not at this point.
Okay,
Yes.
and the strategic plan minutes, one of them was up on Friday. I was able to get it. The second one came up later on Sunday. So we didn't have the 3 days for that. And besides that, I find them lacking in any detail. While they may meet the minimum state requirement for what constitutes meeting minutes, I wouldn't smile about it, Dr. Mosley, because it's not a joke. I think the public deserves
Excuse me.
to have the
Excuse me.
information about what goes
You're
on
out
in
of
that
order.
meeting.
You're out of order.
Well, so that's why I'm asking that those be pulled, because we need to discuss that. They're not complete.
So is there a motion to accept the consent agenda without,
I have another thing to pull, point of order.
you have something else?
To pull.
Okay.
I would like to pull the email correspondence list because it's missing a former principal's letter that our attorney said that we should include, maybe redact a little bit, but it should be included because it was a public letter.
Is there a motion to accept the agenda, the consent agenda with those 4 items withheld? Ms. Van Twyver?
I move to accept the consent agenda without the Curriculum and Evaluation Committee meeting minutes, the 2 strategic planning meeting minutes, and also the email correspondence list.
Second.
you like me to take the roll call, Madam President? Or
Can you,
what's your
can you
desire?
reread the
Have a
motion,
hand
please?
up over here, Madam President.
Pardon? Hand up? Oh, Ms. Hohensie.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I'm going to abstain from this because we don't have a policy now that includes the non-public session minutes that should also be approved. So until that policy gets changed, that I will be abstaining from these type of motions.
According to our city attorney, Attorney Bolton, those are not necessary. I know you have brought that up before, but I have gotten a legal opinion, and I am not going to support the motion that was made because we had the attorney speak to us about the email correspondence list, and that issue had, we had a legal opinion on that, and I believe what you said was incorrect. So I'm not going to support the motion. So we can take the vote.
You ready for the vote on the motion, Madam President?
Yes.
On the motion, Mr. Mosher,
Would you,
the
Please.
motion is to accept the consent agenda without the Curriculum and Evaluation Committee meeting minutes, without strategic planning meeting minutes, and without the communications email correspondence list.
thank you. I just wanted to make sure I had it correctly marked on my list.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Oden?
No.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
No.
Ms. Hohensie abstains.
Abstain.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes no. Ms. Porter?
No.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4 noes, 1, 2, 3, 4 yeses, 1 abstention. The motion fails.
Now what?
Madam.
Mr. Guarino?
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion to accept the consent agenda the way it is as presented on the agenda.
Second.
Are you ready for the vote, Madam President?
Yes.
On the motion to accept
Now they're going to do
the consent agenda as it's presented in the agenda, Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mrs. Oden,
Yes.
Kaufman,
No.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Hohensie. You
No.
still- You abstain? You still no? Okay, you're no.
This
Okay.
time is no. It's a
Okay.
different motion.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter?
Yes.
We have 2 noes and 7 yeses. Motion carries.
Do we have any communication outside the consent agenda? Okay. Public question and comment period. Is anybody here from the public that would like to speak? No? Okay. Superintendent's comments.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to welcome everyone back to school. This has been our first board meeting with our kids back in school, and I just want to welcome everyone back. And I said kids, our faculty, and certainly it's been a very hot, and now it's cooled down, auspicious way to begin the school year. It's never easy to start the school year. It's always whether it's, I see Dave Rossio in our audience tonight. He's our bus transportation director, excuse me, and I know he's been very busy over the last 2 weeks coordinating buses and making sure that our kids get home safely. And thank you for all the time and attention you put into that, David. I really appreciate it. So I will be brief, and I just want to touch on a couple of poignant points this year. Currently, right now, and I will be updating the board as the school year progresses, we're at 11,227 students district-wide.
For our full-day kindergarten, we have about 776 students currently enrolled. We have the capacity-ish, I say ish, of about 820. So we still have about 41 slots district-wide that are available for our kids, and so there's plenty of room for our full-day kindergarten. Full-day kindergarten in terms of enrollment, but we're always, you don't have to be in full-day kindergarten to enroll in the Nashua Public Schools, excuse me. You can always enroll as a 12th grader, middle school, whatever. But once again, our enrollments are about 11,227 students thus far. And as we get closer to the October 1st date, I will update the board in terms of our final numbers. I'm excited. I hope we're able to celebrate our strategic plan kickoff that's coming this Thursday in the Rotundra at South. I know we're going to speak more about that later on in the meeting, but I want to just say that I'm excited. It's a long time coming. It's been a very collaborative process, and we're looking forward to doing that. It's Thursday, September 13th. I'm just saying this out to the public. It's also on our website. Just come if you want to stay for 5 minutes or for the whole time. It's Thursday, September 13th, starting at 3 p.m. at Nashua High School South in the Rotundra, which is right outside of the gym. So we're really going to really start to talk about our strategic planning, introduce our strategic planning steering committee, and really do a nice job kicking off the school year with this event. So thank you. And finally, I just want to say that this year is the first year that we have instituted our safety training, and we started it at the end of last year. We will continue doing that training throughout this year. We're going to really try to individualize that in the sense that each school is going to have what I would say a more intimate setting with our police officers around safety training for our students, and we're going to continue that throughout this school year. I will have certainly more to report back out in terms of the school year and how it's progressing, but it's been 2 weeks. One of those weeks we had that Friday off, then we're coming back off of Labor Day, and now this week we have voting day tomorrow. So it's been kind of a nice transition back, but to be very honest with you, I want to get as many days in as possible so we can have a lot on the books for to avoid, I don't want to say snow days in the middle of September, but certainly it's nice to get as many days in. And I jinxed myself last year because I said snow day, but yet I think in November and October we had that little, we lost power and I had to use a snow day. So, but anyway, I just want to say to the Nashua community and to our teachers, welcome back. Thank you for what you've done for our kids. Teachers, thank you for enduring some of the oppressive heating conditions we had to endure in some of our buildings and keeping our kids safe, transporting them every day. It's amazing. We have 11,000 plus students twice a day transitioning throughout this entire district. And I can sit here and say we do it safely every single day, 180 days a year, and it's just incredible. So thank you again. And I'm looking at Dave, the bus routes changed, people move around, we've got variances going, and the fact that you can ask Dave in his office and say, where's this bus? And he can pinpoint it with just literally 2 minutes. It's just amazing. So I want to say thank you to the staff, but also thank you to the transportation department and our bus drivers who are just doing tremendous jobs, who are unsung heroes that wait at the last moment for those kids to get on the bus and certainly drop them off as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mosley. Board members' comments, response to the superintendent's comments. Anybody over here? Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. Thank you for your report, Dr. Mosley, on particularly on enrollments. I have a couple of questions relative to, we do have a document that was given to us. So, and I'm glad you mentioned what the capacity was for kindergarten. Do you think this sheet can be updated to reflect the capacity of the various grades as well? In other words, I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. Absolutely.
Okay,
Sure.
because I think that would be very helpful, because it'll give us what capabilities we have and
Sure.
what capacity, if any.
Yeah.
And the other thing, can this chart be updated to include Brentwood? And I don't know if we want to keep calling it Brentwood, because it's not a Brentwood anymore.
Sure.
All right, it's on Amherst Street now. So the Brentwood Clearway for the, we have two types of students at Clearway. So for each of those populations, and I guess now that we have these suspension services, I guess hopefully we haven't had any suspensions yet, so we don't have any kids over there. But I did want to ask, well, I guess I can wait until we talk about that later, but I would ask that if the suspensions are, I could see that as a revolving thing, because kids are there anywhere from a couple, 3 days to 10 days, I understand that. But the capacity at Clearway and Brentwood has always been of interest to the board in the past, because I know a year or so ago, they came to us, we had a very good meeting where we were going to be more proactive at the beginning, almost at the end of the school year, to ensure enrollments were in place for September. So do you have any idea, I just should ask, how many people will be in Clearway now that school is open?
I can certainly get you that information for the
Okay.
next meeting.
Thank you.
What I'll do, Mr. Kaufman, is that I will just update. I actually have a snapshot of what the district looks like district-wide for all of our schools. You don't have this in your packet, but I can certainly update it according to the school. So it's general enrollment for all of the schools, and I can certainly do that, include Clearway and Clearway and the Brentwood programs in those two. I just want to remind board members that the real number is after October 1st. So, to see those numbers fluctuate, it's very, very common.
Thank you. I do have one last question. On the sheet that you gave us relative to enrollment, there's an other column in the far right side. And it has 243 students. I noticed they're all elementary schools. Can you please explain that column?
Oh, I see. You do have that. Okay.
This is the only sheet we received. There's a second side to it.
Let me look into that. There's a reason for that, so I don't have an answer for you, right? It could be out-of-district placement or something like that. I just want to, before giving you a definitive answer, I just want to make sure that I know exactly what other represent something.
So if,
Oh, hold on.
oh,
Hold on.
Donovan.
That would be the special programs we have at this, that's what that is.
Exactly how I answered that, right, Mr. Donovan? I was
Close.
right on that.
Close-ish.
I'm sorry, what special programs?
Good. Mr. Donovan.
For example, like a program for the deaf and blind children, or we have these SHINE programs for certain types of disabilities. So that's what the other is.
Okay, so like Broad Street Elementary School has a whole room, we visited there. So that, you're referring to the students that would be in that dedicated space.
Yes.
They had strong need had physical disabilities that needed very special services. So that kind of program is what's included in that other, okay, thank you very much.
Thank
I'm
you.
done, thank you.
Ms. O'Hensi?
Thank you. Dr. Mosley, you said we have full-day kindergarten of 776. I'm wondering if we have any half-day kindergarten students this year, and has the online registration form been updated to reflect that option for parents? Last time I looked, it only gave one option, the full day. I want to make sure parents understand that. And is play-based learning being implemented? I know we're going to discuss that later, but is that up and running in our schools?
So we've talked about this before, and certainly we can revisit this. Again, I have to check on the form, but just so the public, and we've talked about this, that if any parent would wish to exercise having half-day kindergarten, they're certainly well within their rights to come and pick up their child halfway through the school day. There's nothing preventing that parent from doing so. There's no policy to doing that. I would, that's something that the parents have the right to exercise if they choose to do so. In terms of play-based curriculum, we certainly would be more than happy to give an update on that, what that feels and looks like, and certainly that would be something at the curriculum evaluation I'd be happy to have that discussion, and Dr. McKinney and some principals can come and just kind of not only give you an update, but also give you some additional information on what that looks like and what kids are engaged in doing. I just don't have that information readily available. And I would be doing a disservice to it if I tried to explain it right now.
Okay, thank you. One other follow-up. when a parent registers for half-day, we register that student with a state as a half-day, not a full day. We can differentiate. So that's why I mean, if you register for half-day, then we're charging the state for that type of an attendance, versus if they just pull them out of school at half-day, there's no differentiation in the registration, so we might be billing the state for something other than we're providing. So I'm just trying to clarify that.
I'll respond. I can research and get you some information around how many parents have exercised their option or opted out of full day. I can get that to you and to the board. It'd
Okay,
be
thank
better.
you.
Mr. Guarino.
I don't really have any questions or comments except to say I think we're off to a great start, and I want to welcome all the students and the teachers, and I'm looking forward to a great year.
Ms. Raymond, do you have anything?
No, thank you.
Ms. Porter? Ms.
No, thank
Timmons? Okay. I will say I was fortunate enough to be able to attend the new teacher orientation. They were all so enthused. It was nice. Some people were coming back after many years. Some people were transferring in for other districts. I also had the opportunity to come here to the safety training for the new teachers. And it was obvious from the attention they gave Officer Elliott, who did an outstanding job, that they found it valuable. It was so well done, and I learned from it too. So I feel good. Thank you, Dr. Mosley and administration, and Chief Lavoie and all of his people, because I feel at least our staff now has been exposed to the best practices in safety. So thank you. To me, that was critical. Critical. Also, I had a chance to go to the clap-in at South, the first day of school. It was just amazing to watch those kids. Some of them just didn't know how to react with all the teachers there clapping them in. I came up to North, but they were just getting out, so I came back in the afternoon. The enthusiasm was you could feel it in the air. The kids were wonderful, and let me see, who was it? Oh, the teacher that's doing the drone program. What's her name? The drone program, what's the teacher?
Miss Bastoni.
She's the CTE director, but the teacher,
Miss Noteg.
Noteg, thank you. She did over a 2-minute video over the school for all the kids watching. It was just fascinating, and I had a chance to speak to her. I didn't realize it, but she had to get her pilot's license. I said, "Can you fly a plane now?" And she said, "No, I don't think so." She said, "But I had to get my pilot's license at Manchester Airport in order to run the program." So thanks to her efforts. She said, "Boy, I haven't studied that hard in a long time." So thank you so much, Mrs. Noteg, for getting your pilot's license, because I think we're ready to fly around here. So thank you. Mr. Mosier, do you have something?
Well, I was impressed with the kids getting back to school, and the comments I had from some people that I talked to about the quality of the school and the teachers and everything was wonderful. I was very impressed.
Oh, thank you. And now welcome back to Ms. Sweeney and Mr. Gillis, who had, I'm sure they had a busy summer, but a good summer. So any comments from our board members, student board members? Ms. Sweeney?
I have a few comments. So it's been a great start to the school year. We're now about 3 weeks in. So it's especially busy for seniors. We have some upcoming deadlines, like September 28th is the early bird deadline for buying yearbooks, which is the lower price, which is $85. After that, the price does raise to, I want to say $115, but don't hold me to that. There are also your senior quotes, senior pictures, and baby pictures are due October 12th, and I know itself that goes to our yearbook director, Ms. Bartlett. And then also we have no school tomorrow because it is primary day, so there's no school for elections. I'm very excited for it. So, and then our next election is of course November 6th, but you may remember last year in June, we did a voter registration drive at both the schools and both were very successful. So it has been on our minds about maybe having another one at the schools before the next election, which is coming up in a few months. So maybe we can reach some of the seniors who are turning 18 September, October, and early November.
Thank you. Mr. Gillis?
Yeah, so I'd like to add that I think it's really nice to see that the school year is off to a great start so far. And then I would like to shout out the new North assistant principals, Mr. Whitehead and Mr. Lonergan. Mr. Whitehead from Lawrence High, I believe, and then Mr. Lonergan, who was a former Pennachuck Middle School assistant principal. So a lot of us actually got to have him in middle school as an assistant principal, and now he's back with us at
Nice.
North, which is pretty cool. And they're already doing good things in our school, which is awesome. And then it was also cool to see a voting assistance table outside of all lunches today at North to help eligible students, so students who are 18, learn like where to vote, how to vote, et cetera. So I wish I was 18 so I could vote tomorrow, but I can't, so.
Me too.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on. Committee on the Budget. I don't think you have anything for us, Mr. Kaufman?
I have a point of order.
Yes?
I'm concerned, and it revolves around budget a little bit too, that $13 million in federal funds are at risk due to the district's late and faulty compliance submission to the Department of Education. On May 30th, the department sent a document entitled The General Assurances, Terms, Requirements, and for Participation in Federal Programs. It's a 14-page document to the administration. In that letter, the commissioner required certification that all board members were informed of the board's duty and obligations for the proper use of federal funds as described in the 14-page assurance document. The return deadline for this compliance assurance was June 30th. The certification was provided by the district on July 25th, a month late, without the board members being informed by the administration of the board's duties and obligation. The board's minutes confirmed that members never received this information or the 14-page assurance document from the administration. Yet the certification page was signed and certified by the board president and the administration, certifying that the information had been provided to all board members. These false certifications make us out of compliance with federal law, and over $13 million may be at risk. The board president falsely signing and certifying this document should resign from the board. It's a matter of integrity. What was done was wrong. A loss of $13 million would jeopardize the district and the board's credibility. It could lead the public to wonder if other documents have been falsified. It could lead to state or federal contract audits. I move to go into non-public session to discuss the administrator who also signed and certified this document under RSA 91A 3(2)(c). Matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the Board of Education, unless such person requests an open meeting.
Second.
Let me state, I do remember signing a document, and I will say it was fairly lengthy, and I did not read it. I would never sign anything on purpose illegally. So if I made that mistake, I will take responsibility for that, but I have no intention of resigning as president. Ms. Timmons?
Yes, I'd like to support you not resigning. I think that's premature, and I think this is really crazy to bring that up at this particular time. That should have been a non-public, and I resent the whole comment of that letter that was just read. And please do not resign, because it would not benefit our school or the children in the school. It's only to hurt and to make our district look bad, and I really resent that. We're here for our children, not to make our district look horrible, and I think that letter did just that. and I think it was intentional, and I disagree with you resigning. And I support you 100%, Ms. Odom.
Thank you. Dr. Mosley?
We had just, I guess, Dan, can you, we don't have all of our information here. I know that Glennis is in the audience, but can we speak briefly to some of we had a couple of documents that needed to be updated, and then certainly in no way in the public that we were ever trying to hide $13 million or anything like that. The fact that this is coming up here is quite frankly not appropriate in terms of the facts that were stated here. And clearly, if there was anytime you're dealing with federal grants, anytime the guidelines slightly change, you have to be reactive to it. And certainly at no time were our 13 million or anything ever in jeopardy in terms of not being secured by the district. Dan, you just want to speak to a bit?
Well, I mean, it's a document that the state requires us to do. I'm not sure if it's annually, but at least every couple of years, it may be annually. I don't think there's any danger whatsoever of losing 13 million. I don't think there's any danger of losing 1. So I think that was a bit of a overstep by the speaker to this issue. If it was late, it was late. You know, once something's late, you need to just get it together and get it done. I mean, to be honest with you, I wasn't 100% sure that it was late. I'm just finding that now, but
Yeah.
I may have forgotten about that.
Yeah, when we get documents coming from the state around Title I, Title II, we always have to make amendments. Our population changes, our demographics change, our teaching force change, and certainly we update that as we would any document. But at some point, this has to change. We can't be doing this anymore. Like making accusations that this person did this person did that. Every single person that works in this district is a good person.
Yes.
They want to do some good things. And for us to be bogged down, throwing a grenade at Dan, or throwing a grenade at Dana, stops. This is ridiculous. If any time it was $13 million and that was going to be an issue, we would have been all over it. Can we move this conversation to talk about our kids? Can we move this conversation to get with the business of what's important in this district and let's stop being a model for our kids and for our community and not attack each other? This isn't right.
Mr. Guarino?
Thank you, Madam President. I would just like to voice my support for our president and also for our administration. I think that we need to stop trying to make political hay, stop trying to score political points. None of what was said about being late and all this other stuff has anything to do with advancing education, public education in the city of Nashua. And I think that shame on us, shame on any individual who does not put the district in public education and public schools in Nashua first and trying to score political points. I think it's wrong, and I voice my support for Ms. Dottie Oden as president. And also, I have my trust in the administration, and that's where my vote and my trust is going to go.
Mr. Kaufman, then Ms. White.
Thank you. I have copies of the letter sent by Commissioner Edelblue requesting that the district complete this certification by June 30th. It was mentioned that it was handed in late on the 25th, but the issue at hand is the requirement that the district, this is what Mrs. Oden signed, okay? I, the undersigned official representing the school board, acknowledge that the superintendent or other qualifying administrator as identified above has consulted with all members of the school board in furtherance of the school board's obligations, including those enumerated in RSA 189:1-A, and pursuant to the school board's oversight of federal funds the district will be receiving and of the general assurances, terms, and requirements for the district participation in said programs. And if you read the original letter, it speaks to the fact that this certification needs to be on file. The state collects them on behalf of the federal government, and they're required for us to maintain and keep our federal funding, all of it. And the $13 million number came from a form that the board, the district rather, submits to the state. It's called the DOE 25. And I spoke with, I think it's Mr. Leclerc, hopefully I said his name correctly. And he pointed me to that document, and the sum total of all federal funds that we receive is over $13 million. And I have copies that I'd be happy to share with the board so you can be briefed on this matter. Mrs. Hohensee wanted to go into non-public.
Ms. Van Twyver.
That's up to the president if she wants to.
Excuse me.
Point of order, point of order.
She was called.
It's up to the president whether or not she would allow Mr. Kaufman to distribute information.
Ms. Van Twyver.
It's for you, and this one's
When
for
is
the
this
clerk.
gentleman ever going to learn?
Take it back.
Madam President?
It's up to
I
the
understand.
president.
It's public record, folks.
I understand that this is a new process that Mr. Endelblue has put into works. And could we, thank you. And I am dissatisfied the fact that we were not given a notice about this and giving us an opportunity to be trained on this. And I am also concerned about those people in the district who have not read this document. That would be the people from Title I and everybody that gets federal funds, and even Mr. Donovan, whether he is aware of what needs to be done. This booklet is, what is it, 14 pages long, did you say? And I think that we need to be assured that these general assurances are going to be complied with. And I'd like to really say that I'm disappointed that not only were we not informed about this, but it was also late in getting into the State Department of Education.
Thank you, Ms. Van Twyver. Ms. Raymond?
Thank you. I suppose I have a question on points of order as well as a comment. I know there's a motion on the table to go into non-public. My preference would be to table this matter. I was just handed something. I'd prefer not to do research in a main board meeting. I'd like to have us ask Dr. Mosley and Mr. Donovan to investigate this and get back to us with whatever we need and whatever needs to be done. But you know what I mean? But to give people time to read this document, and then also if there's a 14-page document, I can't absorb that in a 5 or 10 minute non-public session. I'm going to have to sit down with that, and then give Dr. Mosley an opportunity to look into it and then come back to us. So my suggestion is we table it, but I'm not sure under the rules if I can make a motion to table it while there's a motion to go into non-public. Ms. Van Twyver is nodding her head, so I'll do that. I move to table this until we get a chance to review the documentation and to give Dr. Mosley a chance to investigate and get back to the board.
Second.
Okay. Could you?
She's motioning to table.
There's a motion. There's a motion on the floor to go into non-public. Okay, so what are we tabling that motion? Or are you, when you say table this is an issue that's been brought before the board. Okay, it's not a motion. So
I'm asking to table this issue, table the question of what happened with this certification until we can get further information, because I would like to see all the documentation. I'm sure others on the board would like to see it for themselves. This is the first I'm hearing about it this evening. I would like to give Dr. Mosley the opportunity to investigate and get back to us, and I don't want to spend our valuable time tonight when we have a very aggressive agenda to get through. I'd like to get that timely stuff done as well, and then perhaps have Dr. Mosley come back to us. And if Ms. Hohensee or Mr. Kaufman have that further 14 pages, it sounds like, I would love to have a copy of that or access to it electronically before we have a discussion on, if there's blame or if there's action items. So I'm asking
Okay.
you to table the question.
Okay. I also wanted to speak to this just a little bit. The point is that it's already been certified and signed and sent in. Okay, so certification is done. Okay, it might have been a month late. That happens all the time with federal funding. Okay, so the certification is done. So I don't know what we're discussing. And the other point I wanted to make is that if any member comes to the board and wants to distribute anything, they have to get permission from the president. And that's what I object to. You have to get permission first. That's Robert rules.
Okay.
That's Raymond's rules.
I would just like to say, certainly, I will take responsibility. This wasn't done purposely. I went into central office for one thing, and they said, we have this document you need to sign. I did not read it. My fault. I'll take responsibility for that. And I certainly do agree. If the board was supposed to be informed about this, all the board should have been informed about it. Absolutely. It's a new, I think they said it was new. And if you want to go into non-public because it's about me, you cannot go into non-public
Not about you.
about a board member. So I'll be right here in public if anybody has anything to say. Ms. Hohensee.
Thank you. You're correct. You can't talk about a board member in non-public, but you can't talk about a staff member in public. So that's why I addressed the issue about your signature in public, and I asked to go into non-public. My concern is that we're being shut out as board members. I gave you a call, I left a message, I asked that we have counsel present for this issue. I got no return call, but I'm not surprised because many of my questions go unanswered. I don't like the fact that I don't feel that the board members are being given all the information to oversee the district. And that's what this certification was for, to make sure when you certify it to the state, it wasn't a big issue that it was late. The big issue is nobody read it to see that the board members were fully informed. How do we oversee a district without information, with blinders on? Maybe you're happy just taking at face value anything that happens. Some of us like to do our due diligence. I was offended when I saw this and that the board wasn't given the opportunity to be fully informed. I called the board president. I got no answer. So I brought it up because I think it's important that we understand this and what our obligations and duties are and try to exercise them. Thank you.
Ms. Timmons?
What I see is a control over the administration and the board. We don't want to control, we just want our kids to have good education. I see some people don't want to do that. That's my objection. My objection is when we're here for our children, not here to throw anybody under the bus. We're not here to destroy the administration, our teachers, our staff. We're not here to do that. Some of us are here for the right reasons, and some of us are not. I am very comfortable with not blindly, because I'm here for our children. Anything that can make me happy with teaching our children and moving the school district forward. I have too many kids in the school district will not be affected by this whole thing. They probably don't even care. But some people want to throw other people under the bus. I don't like it, and I refuse to participate in something like that. So you do not have to apologize for anything. You did what you thought was best.
Ms. Raymond?
I'd like to call the question of tabling this to get a little bit more information so we can come back and make a rational decision.
It was second.
Yes, that's why I'm calling the question.
You have to vote on calling the question.
Roll call.
On calling the question, Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mrs. Oden,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Hohensie,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries 9-0. On the motion to table, Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mrs. Oden,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Only if we will bring this back up for a resolution. Can I be assured that that's going to happen, Madam Chairman?
Not
Ms. Raymond,
discussion.
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Hohensie,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter?
Yes.
The motion carries 9-0. We're tabling that question. There's also a motion on the floor to go into non-public.
Point of order, it was tabled.
What was tabled was the question, the issue of this.
The
this thing.
motion to go into non-public was tabled.
So the entire issue has been tabled, Mr.
So,
Guarino.
I guess it was all part of one big package. Because
Yes.
things just change. This is so dynamic in here that things just change on the fly.
21st century America.
Because,
Yeah, 21st century
please,
paranoia.
please.
Okay.
Can I get in comments?
Yes, Mr. Mosher.
It disturbs me very much to hear how self-serving certain individuals can be in the process that we pursue, and to call out and mention names and positions and so on is very improper, and only goes to prove that the person has a separate agenda that they would like to fulfill by destroying, or not destroying necessarily, but by causing dissension and strife in the group. And it bothers me very much that in all of the years that I have been on the board, I have never seen a board as contentious and miserable as this one. And it makes me sick to my stomach to listen to the way this goes on. And I think that something has to be done. I don't know what, but something has to be done to get back to civility and get back to the rules that we follow, Robert's rules, and take things in order and do it in a proper fashion, and not use the board meetings to follow a separate agenda that somebody has. So there.
Thank you, Mr. Mosher. Ms. Porter?
I'll be very quick. I would just want to let the public know what a treasure we have in Mrs. Oden as our board president.
Agree.
Until I was on the board, I had no idea what goes on here. And I can tell you honestly, nobody has any idea how much work Mrs. Oden puts in, not only what's required of her, but above and beyond. And I just think that people need to know how amazing this woman is. And thank you very much, Mrs. Oden, for everything you do.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Porter. All I can do is do the best I can. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. Did I miss something? Yes, I did. But it was not intentional. It was not to deceive anybody. And I guess I take umbrage at the accusations that were made against me. So I will leave it at that.
Dr. Mosher.
I would just say that, just thank you, Dottie, for being a leader for our board, and thank you for a model for our kids. We'll certainly provide them with the board with the necessary information, but I want to echo Ms. Porter's words and your support and your leadership. And certainly, my name is on that as well, and we'll certainly get all of the information out that is, that's being required by one member. And thank you, Mr. Mosher, for those words. I think the kids and the community appreciate that.
Okay.
Point of order. I just want to say it wasn't required by me, it's required by the state. It might be required by the federal government because the State Department has to assure the federal government that we're in compliance. This isn't my requirement.
Okay. Mr. Kaufman, did you have your hand raised?
Well, I was just going to say, the $13 million covers everything from Title I to vocational programs, child nutrition, disabilities related. So I just want to make a point to one of the spokesperson that said it wouldn't affect perhaps her children, but there's hundreds of kids that have Title I programs, and this could, it might, we don't know.
We tabled
Yeah,
this.
just.
I'm sorry, you
please,
referred to
please.
it.
Point of order.
It is tabled and it will be discussed, so.
Let's move on.
Move on.
Committee on Finance and Operations.
Thank you, Madam President. We have a number of items that were approved at the Committee on Finance and Operations. The first was a contract to approve for the Youth Council for out-of-school suspension services. These contracts were discussed in our committee at length. So if anyone has any more questions, I'm going to call on Mr. Donovan to answer them. But before that, I'm going to make a motion to approve recommendation to approve the contract with the Youth Council for out-of-school suspension services for students in grades 5 through 8 for $61,325.
So moved.
Seconded? Me?
Second.
Yep.
Mr. Kaufman.
Thank you. I reviewed the contract. I understand there'll be 7 students at a time, obviously on a revolving basis. The questions that concerned me the most was that according to the contract, the district has to give the youth council office space in both north and south. So I'll have a question about that, but that same paragraph says they also have access to the student database. So I want to understand what safeguards are in place that this external resource to us, now that they have access to the student data, how is our student data maintained its privacy? Because it's a big deal.
Mr. Donovan?
Well, first of all, I think, Mr. Kaufman, you're confusing. There's 2 contracts here. The first contract that was mentioned was to do with the out-of-school suspension services. I think you're speaking to the next one, which is the providing the
I
master
see
level
they were
student.
attached. I didn't realize they were separate. Oh, thank you, Mr. Donovan. I'll defer my question when we get to that one. But I would like, do we have the space to give them? That was a question.
Wait.
We've had this person in place now this is the 3rd year this person's
Okay.
been in place.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Raymond?
Yeah, that was my commentary. This is not a new program. I've had the opportunity to meet them in the past. I've had the opportunity to work with kids and families who have experienced this program through my other life away from the board, and it is a wonderful program, and they've had some really good results. So I'm full in favor of this.
Okay. Could you read the motion?
We're ready for the vote, Madam President?
Yes.
Could you reread the motion, please?
Okay. The motion is to recommendation to approve the contract with the Youth Council for out-of-school suspension services for students in grades 5 through 8 for $61,325. Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Mrs. Oden?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hohensie,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Greeno votes yes. Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0. Okay, our next item is also a contract. It's with the Youth Council. Again, this was discussed at length at the committee level. So I'm going to I move to recommend to approve the contract with Youth Council to provide a master's level student assistant program counselor for the high schools for $50,000.
Second?
Anybody have any? Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. So my question about student privacy, since these folks have access to our student database, can someone please address that? What safeguards are in place?
When you mean access, I'm unclear about a blanket statement of like having access to student database. Can you be very specific?
Sure. I'll read what's in the handout that was given to us. The Youth Council expects Nashua North and South High Schools to provide furnished office space for the counselor, to include a telephone and computer, along with access to a copy machine and to the student database. I won't bother reading the rest of the paragraph. So it's in the document we were given, and I'm querying what was handed to us. I didn't make anything up.
So anytime we have a student that is getting support, and data runs from getting the student's complete profile or maybe a copy of the student's schedule so that he or she can complete work there. Either way, there is a confidentiality agreement that would be in place. That would not necessarily mean that they would have unfettered access, but certainly that access to student information would be limited in terms of the students that the person is working with.
So if I look at the contract we just approved, there is no confidentiality specific clause that is called out as confidentiality. And certainly the second page has none of that terminology that's in the first contract.
So we have.
So you said there is confidentiality agreement in place. It's not part of this contract. It's not referenced as part of this contract. Can that be clarified?
It's part of our POPs too.
Right, but they don't work for us. Well, they're subject to all our policies, therefore confidentially, but shouldn't they not, as a subcontractor, have a separate agreement that says we abide by POPs, therefore confidentiality is ensured?
We can certainly make sure that they are aware and sign off on some form of confidentiality. Are you making reference that there was a problem before?
No, I'm just reading this. When I see, we're going to give somebody who doesn't work for the district, a contractor, access to the student database, that set off red flags. So that's why I'm asking. And it's intended to protect our students. So that's why I'm asking the question. So that will be added to the contract? Some kind of provision around confidentiality being maintained? I don't know, is that Dr. Mosley, is Mr. Donovan? What have you seen, Dan? Has this...
Well, there's, in this package, the first contract has our contract as well as theirs. The second one just has theirs. There is our contract that also goes with this one. Does it specifically state something about the clause you mentioned? I don't think so, but it does cover those other areas that are covered in the first contract.
Okay, so can we do something in our standard contract to beef up a confidentiality clause?
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly do something. I don't know personally a lot about.
I understand all that piece of it, and I don't expect it, it's not an overnight, but I think it's just as, given the sensitivity of student data, we should do everything we can to make sure we're protecting our students. Thank you.
Ms. Van Twyver?
I have a question about how many students the youth council deals with. Is it sort of like a one-time thing, or is it a long-going situation, counseling situation with a student? How much does $50,000 cover?
Well, $50,000 just covers that person
Yeah.
spending half their time in one high school, half the time in another. I think it's 2 days and 2 days, actually.
Okay,
So, and they're here during most of the school year. That's what that covers.
okay.
It's not a fee for
per
visit or
person.
anything like that. This was back about 2 or 3 years ago, this was voted by the board as a position in the district, but it was done in June of that budget year. There was no time to get a person in over the summer to fill the role, and the amount that's still there of 50,000 probably isn't quite enough to pay for the type of person that the schools are looking for.
But do we know what the caseload is? I mean,
I
they work 5 kids, 10, 20, 100?
I don't, personally, I don't know that. Could find out, but
I was just curious.
I could ask how many students the counselor deals with.
Thank you.
Ms. Owensi.
Thank you. Could we also, for this student database, we ought to put something in there to seek permission, for parental permission for minors. I assume that's what you do before you give any student data out to anyone. Make sure the parents have given permission for this data, this private confidential data, to go to another party.
Dr. Mosley.
I guess there's all these, I would say, little rec suggestions coming from the board, and maybe it's best that we not sign any contract. I don't know where this is going, because it's going to perhaps hold it up in a way where we'll have to check with legal, send it to legal, then all the suggestions that are being made here at the board meeting, legal can incorporate that. We've done this for 3 years now. They've worked with our kids, some kids that need this service, and I don't have the youth council here, but they want a contract to make sure that they can be compensated for their employees, and so the best thing that I would just say, rather than trying to wordsmith this right here, because we got a pretty aggressive agenda, maybe we just send it to one of our city attorneys with the suggestions here at the board, see what happens, and then we can come back and look at this again.
Ms. Timmons.
Thank you, Dr. Mosley. I would rather just go ahead and vote on this. I don't want to delay any education towards our children. I think this would be another delay, and I think our children should come first. I think we should vote on it. It's on the agenda, and I think we should vote on it.
Ms. Porter, did you have your hand
I
raised?
did. So if we don't approve this today, then that means that students are going to go without services, without counseling, is that correct?
We've never done.
Person be hired? Is this person working currently?
The answer to your question is, Ms. Porter, is I really don't know, because this is new territory. Typically, we've just approved these contracts each year. We've never had a problem with the individuals providing the service. So if we're going to now start wordsmithing and changing the language of these contracts, then it's incumbent on us to do it with fidelity, in a way where we have experts looking at the contracts, taking the suggestion of board members, incorporating them, and then sending back to the other party so that they can review the modifications the board has made to this contract. And then, I don't know what happens here. So it's kind of new territory a little bit. I can only imagine that they're probably not, or there would be I shouldn't say, there might be a slight reservation working without a contract as a result of these new contingencies on the existing contract. So I will defer to the board on how you would like us to proceed. Dan and I, we don't have the expertise to really sit down and incorporate all these things in the contract that what some board members are looking for. And let's give it to the experts. So we'll have to contact legal and to do so.
I have comment.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes, thank you. We have, excuse me, we have gone along with these contracts for some time, and we have not had any difficulty with them, and we have not experienced any problems with the students. But however, by delaying this, we may be delaying help that some of these students may need in order to be successful in the school. So, by one thing, we are trying to accomplish one thing, but it's a delaying tactic that is basically going to hurt the student. So I'm not for taking that contract and sending it out for review and changing the language in it at all, because we've used it before and we used it successfully. We should continue to use it.
Thank you, Ms. Raymond, and then somebody over here.
Thank you. I'm fairly confident that the Youth Council has parents sign their own paperwork as part of the service that they do, but that's neither here nor there. My concern is if we have the lawyers review the contracts, which I don't think is a bad idea, I don't want to unnecessarily delay students who need this mental health treatment any longer. And it is very convenient for some families to have this option of having their child see a master's level clinician in the school when they perhaps don't have the ability to get them to a clinician outside of the school hours. Having said that, do you think it is possible, and this question I think is for Dr. Mosley, to have some of those answers by our next full board meeting so that we are not unnecessarily delaying this stuff for some of our kids?
The answer to the question you're asking me is, is there enough time to make all of these modifications to the current contract and get an answer back before the next board meeting?
If the modifications are necessary, not seeing the other contract, there may be something there because there's their contract and our contract. So perhaps when one of our attorneys reviews them, they might say it's only a sentence or something, or they might not find anything. But I certainly would like the answer to Ms. Van Twyver's question about caseloads because that's interesting to me. But do you think it's 2 weeks, right? Or 3? 2?
I'll never say no, Heather, so, because means my mother would say, if you say no, then you're not trying. So the answer to your question is I'll do my best. I can't make any promises.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Van Twyver?
I just understood that this is mental health counseling, which now concerns me a little bit more. The data that this counselor has access to on the student, is it protected by federal FERPA, whatever it is?
Yeah.
Then I think that something should be done where they have to sign a statement. We can't look at the data. So I think that what we should do is approve the contract, but then have Mr. Donovan get a change to the contract so that they sign a non-disclosure. Because we can't just let anybody look at the student's private data. Right. I mean, to me, that's like putting a lock on Fort Knox, Nobody, I mean, that's strong a thing.
Mr. Donovan, did you have a...
Well, and it does say in the contract, conduct screening and intervention for students with parental permission. It says that in the contract.
Yes, but that doesn't...
No, I understand, and if you want to make this has been going on for 3 years. And we can get the information everybody wants. If you want to turn it into a significant document, you can. That will not happen in 2 weeks if you want legal, because we don't snap our fingers and get a response from city legal.
Well, I think it can take a while to do that. I'm not opposed to that, and sign the contract.
Person's working right now, so...
That's fine with me. Sign the let's approve the contract. But Mr. Donovan, we live in a different world today. Some of the craziness that goes on in this world is unbelievable, and I'm sure that this person is fine, but I think we need something to protect ourselves, honestly.
Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. I'd just would like to clarify, this was not intended to be any kind of a delaying tactic as it was suggested. Rather, it's me trying to do my due diligence when reading a contract that's been presented to me. Now, I actually support Ms. Van Twyver and Ms. Raymond's proposition. I would be in favor of approving the contract contingent upon the addition of a confidentiality clause. I certainly don't want to deny services to the students that need them, but at the same time, I want to make sure that the students, the district, has the legal protections in place in case something falls through the cracks. Great, we've had 3 years of no problems. It doesn't mean problems don't surface. And that's to Mr. Van Twyver's point. So I'm in favor of moving it forward contingent upon legal review with some kind of confidentiality, specifically to be referenced in their review, or just put it something along those lines.
Ms. Raymond?
Do we have a non-disclosure form already that the school could easily just use?
Well, yes, we do have that. I'm just thinking, I'm sorry.
I was just
You
going to
asked the
think, because
question.
that would solve all of the problems. If there was just a form that we already have that says you can't disclose, student data, that would, in my view, that would solve it. Yeah.
I guess, I
Yes.
don't want to talk out of turn. For the sake of discussion and for the timing and stuff, if board members would like to send their comments to Mr. Donovan around this contract, Mr. Donovan will send the contract to legal, and whenever legal gets around to revising it, we'll get it back and we'll turn it around. But in the meantime, there's a vote up to whether we want to sign this contract or not. We have people who are currently working and servicing students, so it's a little bit more than just changing the contract right here, because now you're changing the agreement that we have had in place for 3 years here at this meeting. So if you want to approve it with contingency, with the edits to the contract, we send it to legal. You send all your suggestions and modifications to Mr. Donovan and forward it to the city legal. As soon as they give it back to us, we'll put it on the docket.
Ms. O'Hensi?
I'd like to move to amend the current motion to include the comments that we made tonight, so we can approve it tonight with the understanding that Mr. Donovan will go to legal and get these updates to make sure that there's parental permission, there's non-disclosures, and all those things that we discussed tonight to expedite the approval of this contract.
Second.
Could you reread the motion for us, please, Mr. Guarino?
Thank you, Madam President. The motion is to recommend to approve the contract with the Youth Council for out-of-school suspension services for students.
No.
No.
Amendment.
It's
Right.
to approve the master's level student assistant program,
To approve.
but then there's an amendment to that, so we would be
Haven't
voting on.
I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one here.
Then we'd be
Okay.
voting on the amendment.
I'm sorry. The
right?
recommended to approve the contract with Youth Council to provide master level student assistant program counselor for the high schools for $50,000, amended so that Mr. Donovan will get parental approval, and with other comments that were made tonight.
Madam President, we didn't vote on the amendment, but let's go ahead and vote on what he said.
Agreed.
Okay.
I was reading the wrong one I was reading the previous one. I apologize.
Okay.
Okay.
Roll call.
On the motion, Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mrs. Oden,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Hohensie,
Yes?
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes?
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter,
Yes.
motion carries 9-0. Okay, our next item is to approve a new kitchen steamer for food service from Kitteridge Food Services Equipment and Supplies at a cost of $11,070. Once again, this was discussed in the committee, and questions were asked and answered. So I'm going to make a motion. I move to approve to purchase a new kitchen steamer for food service from Kitteridge Food Services Equipment and Supply at a cost of $11,070.
Second.
Are you ready for the vote, Madam President?
Oh.
On the motion, Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mrs. Oden,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Hohensie,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0. Our next item is a recommendation to approve Brentwood Security System at a cost of $11,916.70. I believe it was Mr. Smith had come and explained the needs for to upgrade security system at our committee meeting. If anyone has any questions, hopefully Mr. Donovan can help them, but we did discuss this in committee. So I'm going to move to approve the Brentwood security system at a cost of $11,916.70.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Mr. Kaufman?
Thanks. As much as I want security of all our buildings, I will be voting against this for the simple reason that considering how much discussion we had about that particular building and finally selecting it and reviewing the lease and all the back and forth that went on, this is the first time at the board level, not committee level, or when we were doing any deliberations about replacing Brentwood, that the need for a security system came up. And this should have come up earlier. And to do it now, I feel as though it's being thrown on us, and I'm going to vote no, because that's just to send the message that you need to let us know these things ahead of time. When you're asking for extra money for a lease, at the same time, you should tell us it's another 12 grand or whatever it is, that's $1,000 a month. We can deal with it at that time when we're already allocating another 10 or 15,000. So yes, we need it, but my vote is no.
Can I just say, when I went on one of the visits, it was real clear that we were going to need security. Matter of fact, the people that were showing us from Brady Sullivan said, yeah, this door here, you're going to have a camera. You don't want kids going out. So we knew that there were security issues that we were going to have to deal with. We didn't know specifically how much it was going to cost, but it was brought up during the visit. I feel comfortable with this. Ms. Timmons?
Yes, I was there as well. They did say you need security for those same reasons you just stated, and I think we should go along and just approve this and not have any more conversation on it. We're running out of time.
Thank you. Ms. Hohensie?
Thank you. I'd just like to argue to my colleague that the funding is coming from the building and grounds maintenance line item, so it's money that we have. It's not new money, so I will be supporting security at Brentwood.
Okay. Roll
Roll
call.
call.
Ms. Van
I have
Twyver?
could this money could this be taken out of the money that, $5 million that we're talking about from the federal government for the other buildings? Or no?
That money's all used up right now. It's not the federal government, you're talking about the
Oh,
state,
Yeah,
the
wherever
state
we got
grants,
it.
yeah, there's no, that's
They
used
it
up at this
already? And
point.
all that stuff has been installed and whatever?
Most of it's installed, they're still finishing some of it up, but it's all been, the grant money that the state had available has been given out to all the
Okay.
various communities.
All right, thank you.
Roll call?
You ready for the vote, Madam President?
I am.
On the motion is to recommend to approve the Brentwood security system at a cost of $11,916.70. Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Mrs. Oden?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hohensie,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0. Our last item from the Committee on Finance and Operations is our fiscal year 2019 July transfer report, which was provided in the packet. It's self-explanatory, so I'm not going to elaborate on it anymore, but I am going to make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2019 July transfer report.
Second.
Questions, comments? Take the roll.
You ready for the vote, Madam President?
Yes.
On the motion to approve the fiscal year 2019 July transfer report, Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mrs. Oden,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Hohensie,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Okay, thank you. And your next meeting is
Our next
Wednesday?
meeting is on a Wednesday.
September 12th?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Guarino. Committee on Policy?
Thank you, Mrs. Oden. We did not meet in August. Our next meeting is on Tuesday, the 18th at 6 p.m. here in this room.
Okay, thank you. Committee on Curriculum and Evaluation?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee met on August 20, and we had 3 items on our agenda. The first one being Teacher Ease software. Jen Grentham did a wonderful presentation on this product. It is a grading application that the elementary school, plus I believe the other 2 levels of school, have looked at and feel that it would be a great replacement for that part of X2, which is giving them headaches all the time. She did an excellent presentation and very detailed, and it looks to me like a very good product. If you haven't reviewed the video, I suggest you do, because it'll give you a lot of information and understanding about this product. The understanding is that it's going to go into all the elementary schools at the same time. And so I'm recommending, the committee is recommending to approve $36,000 to implement the Teachers Ease software in the elementary schools. And if I have a second, I would like to speak to it.
Second.
I'm a little concerned about this product coming up so late in the year that we're rushing here to implement this software so that it can be used in the elementary schools for the first grading period. I think that we ought to approve this. However, I think that after the first grading period, we should have a report on how the teachers felt about it. Cautioned the superintendent that the implementation has always been a problem with new products in this, and that caution should be taken care of. Now, what bothers me most, too, is that they started talking about this last fall, and then in February did a lot of work, but yet the first time we heard about it was at the curricula meeting in June. I would appreciate that further projects be somehow given a that the board be informed of what was going on before, and so that we have more time to look into the topic. Now, the question also comes up about what it's going to cost us if we implement this district-wide in future years. We have not completed work in the middle schools about the grading system, and we have the high schools that would need to be implemented on. There is an intermediate piece of software, which I can't think of the name right now, that uploads all the information from X2.
Clever?
Clever, thank you, ma'am. Upgrades the changes in from X2 to Clever to Teacher Ease, so that the current situation for students is always up to date. It's done every night. The other good thing about this is that anybody who's having trouble with the software, something happens and their grading isn't going into the report card, they can call and get direct access 24/7. They don't have to go through somebody else, that they can get help with, and that to me would be a very blessing for someone on Sunday afternoon, that can't get their we've also been encouraged that the grading, the report cards do not have to be changed, that they'll be adopted just as it is. So I think it's a good idea that we accept this with the philosophy that it is a pilot for the elementary schools, and that after the first grading period that we get an update on how successful it was, both the implementation of it and also the use of it by the teachers. Ms. Grantham assured us that teachers from every level of this district, teachers were involved in this process, and hopefully they will all love it. So I don't know if anybody has anything more to say, or if Dr. McKinney has anything to say more.
Mr. Kaufman.
Thank you. I attended the curriculum meeting when this was discussed. I'm just going to make several bullet points and explain why I'll be voting no on this proposal. First of all, the board has not had any recent, within the last 6 months, 8 months, any recent issues reported to the board regarding X2. So as far as we knew, everything was fine. There was a lack of notification on the part of the administration. The district knew it wanted this in February. We know this because it was in the district budget, yet the board was not told of this addition to the budget during the budgeting process. It was budgeted in curriculum, where all software previously has gone through the IT budget. This request for $36,000 did not go through the Finance Committee. No contract has been presented or reviewed. There has been no presentation of the implementation plan. There's no pilot program, and the person most knowledgeable about it, Ms. Grantham, has left the district. We don't know the impact, the budget impact, if this expands to the middle and high schools. What starts out as $36,000 will easily become $120,000. We have over $100,000 a year in X2 expenses, and we probably have about $500,000 of sunk cost into X2 gradebook. Well, everything on X2. You're going to be having the capacity to have two gradebooks, which we can really only afford one software system that does everything we need. And there was no demonstration to the board, and largely it really fails to take into account the budgetary impact. But I will be voting no. As much as I think could be a great piece of software, the way it came to the board, and all these other issues. You can't implement 12 schools out of the blue, and you're only creating problems for the district. It goes to past experience that we've had, where these kinds of initiatives have been underestimated and have failed.
Mr. Guarino.
Thank you, Madam President. I will be supporting this, and I want to thank Dr. McKinney for bringing this forward. I did look at the videotape of the curriculum committee that he presented this. I know that X2 has long been it's been in this district for a long time used, and I know teachers don't like it, parents don't like it, and teachers are really looking for something that's going to help them. They're going to get support. They can phone in for support, from what I understand. There was a lot of other details that I don't remember, but I did watch the presentation that Dr. McKinney made at the curriculum committee, and I am going to support it because I think it's a good idea to give teachers a better tool for them. I don't think it does everything that X2 does, but I can't remember all the details. So I want to thank Dr. McKinney for bringing this and taking action on this, because this is a long time coming. We've needed some changes as far as software goes. So I will be supporting it.
Ms. Raymond?
Thank you. I too was there at the curriculum committee meeting. For me, I appreciate the fact that the teachers have been advocating for themselves. X2 hasn't been working as well as it might in the elementary levels. And my understanding is it's quite unwieldy, especially with trying to fill out some of the sections on the report cards, whereas this program appears to have been developed specifically to support standards-based grading, which is what we have in the elementary schools and the high schools. So I'm pleased that it aligns with what we're doing and that hopefully it will be more user-friendly for our teachers, because the worst thing is to spend all your day doing your job and then not be able to record what you did in a timely fashion. And so I'm hoping that this will improve their lives. I am concerned about the cost over time, and I do want to make sure that this works for us before we talk about going forward again year after year. So I would like a little bit more information at some point in the future, as Ms. Van Twyver pointed out, to make sure that the teachers are happy. But my understanding is they tested out several systems and this was the winner. So I'm willing to go with what they think will work. They know their jobs better than I do. So I'm also in favor of it for now.
Ms. Porter?
Dr. McKinney, I just have a question on here. When it says open house support sessions, does that mean that those are training sessions for teachers?
Yes, they are. There are 25 train the trainers. They were trained in the beginning of August, and they'll be facilitating those hour-and-a-half sessions for the teachers. And they'll be doing three things every time. They'll do video instruction, guided practice, and then they're going to fill out an evaluation. So those are optional for teachers to attend. They can attend as many as they want. And then during the early release day, we'll do the same thing again, a series of lessons for teachers to become familiar with the platform and then evaluate it as well.
Okay, so they're optional, so they're not taking the place of a faculty meeting or something that people would otherwise be required to go to?
Not at this time. So during the early release day, we'll have differentiated instruction. We'll have a beginners 101 for teacheries, and then if you went to those sessions, we'll have an advanced session moving forward.
Okay.
Just to be clear for the group here on the board, this is for report cards only. So the learning and support schedule you see here is designed to go all the way through until December. They're still doing right now progress reports in X2. So that piece for them is familiar. Nothing's really changed.
Okay.
That part we're going to be doing. October begins, and then they'll be getting into the platform. And the teachers have the choice of either using all the nuts and bolts that are available to them or just doing the report cards at the end.
So they're not required to use gradebook at this point?
Nope. So they have either of those options, and frankly, when I did visits with the faculty, 9 out of the 12 schools are asking for help in relieving some of the time and effort that it goes through, the hours and the clicks for report cards. And this is a teacher-led initiative. I'm really proud of the trainers who have stepped up and they're leading it. And I got an email the other day during the Patriots game that they were in there tinkering with stuff and they had some questions and we emailed back and forth and got it going. So they really led this and they're asking for your help and support because it's time. You understand the time commitment that they go through for those report cards, and they're looking for a remedy.
So have they also tried out the support number? Like I know there's Teacherese offers technical support. Have they tried that out as well?
Yes, so there's probably 3 layers of support. They have our technology department for X2 and Aspen. They have the Common Goal support system that they can call that 800 number, and I'm taking a part of it on in terms of learning targets and the standards and helping communicate with the basically the leadership team that's moving this initiative forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Ms. O'Hensey?
Thank you. I too attended the meeting, the curriculum meeting, and I'm delighted that teachers are speaking up for what they want. I'm disappointed that we'd have 2 systems. It would have been better to transition to one for the cost. I don't understand the breakdown of costs between one-time costs versus annual costs. There were questions asked in committee that we don't have answers to. If this is a pilot for one grading period, then is this cost just for one grading period? If you're doing a pilot, you don't pay for a year and say we're doing a pilot for half a year. So I don't see a contract. I kind of think this is kind of loose. And I'm just not comfortable with contract after contract that's not a contract, that's not precise. I'll be voting against it because I don't have the answers. I can't vote on something that I don't know. I mean, what the final costs will be, what the contract actually looks at. After the first grading period, if it disappoints, can we get out of it? But no, we have a year's contract. Or, I mean, can we do 18,000 and try it for a pilot period? I'm just uncomfortable with this type of contracting that doesn't go through finance, that's not very precise and has unanswered questions.
Madam Chair,
Yeah. Dr. McKinney?
just to clarify, I never used the word pilot, so it's here for the year. They're using it for report cards, which has been in place for a period of time. They run on trimesters, so we'll be doing it 3 times a year, so there won't be any pilot, but we're going to review the evaluation after each trimester and see what we can do to help and support teachers. They get support from the open house sessions, the early release, and the in-service day. So there are 11,000 kids that come to school every day to learn and grow, and I'm asking for this board to support our teachers and their ability to learn and grow and impact student learning with a 21st century tool that is built specifically for standards-based grading. We learn by doing. We don't learn by saying no. Turn teacherese on and let the teachers learn and grow. Thank you.
May I follow up on that?
Yes.
I'm glad I understand that there's trimesters, that's what I thought, but I think the motion that the committee chair made, that it was going to be a pilot and get a feedback after the first period, grading period, it's not for 11,000 students if it's only going to our elementary schools, so it's some subset of that, maybe 5,000 or 6,000, just the elementary level. Again, I just like more precision in contracts. Contracts are money, and I guess I'm old school. I just like more precision when I'm approving something.
Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. I just want to remind this board that there is no contract been offered to the board to review and approve. So I don't know how, you can allocate money if you want, but there's no contract that can be approved until it goes through finance, comes out with a recommendation, and is subsequently approved by the board. I would argue if this board passes and approves money to be spent on a contract that has not been viewed by the board, there's legal liability attached to that. And I would urge the board to consider, we're here to protect the district as much as ensure the teachers get a new grade book. And the problem is that it's just a grade book. X2 is everything plus a grade book. So they're going to have to coexist. There's no one coming and going. We're going to have dual costs over time. Again, no contract has been reviewed. We can't approve anything without seeing contract first. Thank you.
Ms. Van Twyver?
I may have overstepped my bounds by making a motion to include the money. Maybe the motion should have been to accept the use of teacherese, because now I'm confused about which way, I mean, who gets to approve the 20, I mean, it has to be approved by the board, the 26,000, because it's over 10, well, yeah, 36, excuse me, because it's over the 10,000 mark. So I may have overstepped my bounds in that, but I wasn't thinking, I guess, when I made the motion, and I believe I did. But I don't believe I called that, it was, part of this motion tonight was that it was a pilot.
Right.
I thought that was a recommendation. I thought I was trying to make a recommendation that that it would be after the first grading period that we'd get a report on how it went. But
Dr. McKinney?
Just to be clear, I brought this to Mr. Donovan, asked him, should it go to finance or go to curriculum? The recommendation, it's an academic piece, it came to curriculum, and I think we're in agreement that we're asking for your support to move it forward.
Mr. Donovan, oh, excuse me.
Oh, Mr. Donovan?
Yes, because typically, the concept, the item gets approved, then the contract will come, I will get the contract. I don't even have a contract for this yet. And then I review the contract. If it's complicated, I do send it to legal, and then we can put it through finance and ops. But this is to approve the plan to go ahead and do this. We've done this before with purchase of textbooks and things like that. Now, textbooks don't have much in the way of a contract attached to them, but they get approved within curriculum, and then the actual contract goes through finance and ops.
Thank you.
Point of order.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes, can the clerk please read the motion?
The motion, I believe, can you read, did you take it right from the blue paper? He wants to hear the motion that Ms. Van Twyver made.
Sure. The motion is to approve $36,000 to implement the Teacher E software in the elementary schools. And I just want to say that I understand the concept to approve the $36,000 and to move this forward so that Mr. Donovan can get the contract, that this type of procedure has been done before for other curriculum needs. And it's, when the time comes and the contract comes to Finance and Operations Committee, we'll deliberate on it in committee and we'll send it to the full board. But I don't think that you made any mistakes, Ms. Van Twyver. You brought it to the board for approval and you went through the curriculum committee, you had it deliberated. You spent plenty of time having a presentation and everybody should understand it. So I think it's perfectly fine the way, the process, the way it happened. It's a democratic process. We're all here to vote on it. So I'm perfectly willing to move forward with this.
Mr. Kaufman?
It may be that the amount changes for some reason once the contract's in hand. So maybe you don't want to include the amount and just approve the concept as we've typically done in the past, just as a suggestion. So I don't know.
Could I just say, I do have a couple of comments. I wasn't able to attend the Curriculum and Evaluation Committee meeting, but I did watch it, and I watched parts of it twice. I certainly have heard from many of our teachers that it is real time consuming doing grades. This standard-based education has a lot more time involved than what they did in the past. And I know from using X2, boy, there were many days when I lost all the comments. It was real frustrating, and I don't think there's a period of time that gives teachers more anxiety than doing grades. I appreciate us looking for a way to make this easy, or easier. It's not easy whatsoever, but easier for our teachers and less time consuming. What concerns me is the lack of PD they've had in this. If we had piloted and they had talked to the people that were piloting it last year, it would have been much easier. And I realize this administration is new to all of this, so you didn't have an extra year and you're trying to make it easy. I looked at what they offered this, they have support 24/7. Well, it's servicing 50,000 teachers. And I just wonder what the wait time is when a teacher is trying to do grades, sitting at night. Do you have any idea of what the wait time is when they call? Because I know I've called for service and been on the phone for 2 or 3 hours. Not to this company, but for my computer.
I've been on the phone a number of times. The wait time is less than 5 minutes.
Okay.
I don't, as a former teacher, question the abilities of my former students to learn and grow. I would not do that and ask that this board not do that for the teacher's ability to learn and grow and adapt. I haven't heard one complaint in regards to what's happening. Everybody who was at that meeting has stepped up and is leading this initiative, the trainers, the 25 to 30 people. They are making all these sessions happen. I've already trained the principals and the assistant principals, and we're just doing a slow, step-by-step march until the end of report cards. So There are 250 teachers who are asking for at least 30 hours of relief per trimester and over 200 clicks per trimester, and I ask that you keep them in mind. Thank you.
Okay. Absolutely, I understand that. I have one question. You talked about people coming back in November. Is that people from Teacher Ease? I wasn't quite clear, and I went back a couple times. I wasn't sure who you were referring to coming in November.
I can have Teacher Ease come back. I think I would want to hear from the group, and just like a teacher in the classroom, I look at the evaluation results, and then I provide PD that matches that. The challenge with bringing those people in, they know it really well. That's all they do is go around the country and train people. It's not necessarily very helpful for people who are beginning. And one of the advantage of this piece here is we share the work. So if Ms. Fitzpatrick and I are grade level teachers, I can do some of my math assignments and I can share it with her, and she doesn't have to do it. I can share it across the whole district. So they all share the load of the work here. So it's not just one teacher doing it. And the investment they do this year carries over into future years. So this is an investment just not this trimester, this year, but going forward. So the answer to your question is certainly I can have the common goal or Teacher Ease people come back again, but I want to find the right match that works for our teachers. And if there are people that are willing to get additional training and facilitate that, I'm happy to compensate them. I do think this is an opportunity for teacher leadership and growth, and they're the ones that are really taking the lead on this with my support.
Okay, thank you. I just had a question. Are the Teacher Ease people the ones that are coming back in November? You mentioned that at the curriculum and evaluation meeting, and I wasn't sure who was coming in November.
They are reserved right now. They can come back in the district. Again, I'm not convinced that that's the best person to do that. They may be available for some, but they do this all the time. They talk very fast. They're very proficient. Some of our teachers need a little more support, and frankly, they work better with their grade level colleagues.
Okay.
So that's kind of the model that we're going with.
And there's no way we can keep X2 for those people that do not feel comfortable with this?
X2 is there for progress reports,
Okay.
but we're asking teachers to do one of two things again. Just do your report cards at the end, your summative pieces, or I'll chip away from basically September to December, and then you can publish your report cards with a click of a button and be done. Right now, that doesn't happen in X2. There's being on the ground floor as an assistant principal, comments are lost, grades are lost. There's a lot of paper that's wasted. This, literally, they could take a quiz or a test up until the day before and come in that morning, click publish and print.
Okay.
So I do think it has its advantages.
One final question. Is it $36,000 each year, or is this a startup cost with some of the training?
This is mainly the subscription piece for this. We paid $1,000 for the PD already, and in addition to that, but that's where we are right now. And that's not to say that the cost would be the same going forward, because we'd already have some of the synchronous data back and forth between X2, Clever, and Teacher Ease, and some of the curriculum that we build into the software.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Kaufman and Ms. Van Twyver.
Thank you. You know, I appreciate all the effort and work that went into this, but there's something, in my opinion, that's systemically wrong here. There's something systemically wrong when the district goes out, selects a piece of software, makes commitments to train several hundred, well, what do we have, about 100? I don't know.
The elementary.
How many all the elementary school teachers are. Figure me, I don't know their number. But there's something systematically wrong when the district can go out, train its people for several months, make future commitments, hold 25 sessions on some product that the board incur the professional development costs, et cetera, without any approval of the board even accepting this software that we want to bring it in-house. There needs to be a review before these things happen. What happens in this kind of an instance, it's, oh, well, we spent all this time and effort and money, so we have to go ahead with it. And that's not the way you govern a district. Things like this should be done, planned ahead of time. You can't do 12 schools. You're going to get burned on that. That's my prediction. And this kind of thing should be stopped. You cannot implement something without board approval. You're spending money, you get behind under that $1,000 limit or $10,000 limit. It's still new. It still needs to be approved by the board before you move these things like this.
Ms. Van Twyver, then Mr. Guarino.
I have a question, Dr. McKinney. The $1,000 you said for for the teachers, is that in addition to the $36,000?
Yes, it is.
That was not brought out, sir, at the board meeting. I find that rather unnerving. The other thing that concerns me about this is now we have duplication of effort, a duplication of functionality between X2 and the grading and this teacher ease. We're paying for both of those right now. And since there was such dissatisfaction with X2, I think a long-range plan to investigate replacing X2 with something that will work with teacher ease, if that's the way we're going to go, needs to be done. And the packet had a schedule of learning and support in it, which I was very glad to see. However, that was not presented at the curriculum committee meeting. But I am glad to see that.
Mr. Guarino.
Thank you, Madam President. I think we ought to commend the teachers, and we ought to commend administration for working together and collaborating on improving our system. That's what happened here. What happened was you had professionals who have a system that is old, antiquated, and has been, I knew about X2 for years as a parent, because parents use it, and I still have to use it, and I've heard grumblings for years about that software. So I think we ought to commend and also encourage teachers and administrators bringing stuff forward like this to the board. We need them to collaborate and all their hard work to bring this to the board. That's what's happening here. I don't see any problem with this. Okay, we can deliberate and discuss the details and the cost, et cetera, but we ought to be commending the people in this district for their hard work and not undermining what they do. And we ought to be commending them for how much they care about the district and the hard work and all the time and effort, their time and their effort. It's not always they're on the clock for trying to improve things in our district. So I commend them, and I'm going to vote for this.
Okay. Ms. Van Twyver.
I do not want to take away from the work that they have done, but I think that the board could have been made aware of this earlier on, and then we would not be having this big discussion this time about it. And I am going to support it, Mr. Guarino.
Mr. Gillis.
As a student, it seems that the needs of teachers should trump the needs of any board members. And so considering the fact that almost all of these elementary school teachers need this program, as a personal anecdote, my mother's a teacher in the district, and she's lost her comments on her report cards numerous times. And so if all these teachers, the same thing's happening to them and they need a new software, I think that should happen. So.
Thank you.
Minnesota.
It's 5 minutes of 9. I want to take this vote, and we have some things that are time sensitive that we have to get to on the agenda. So
Are we ready for the vote, Madam President?
Ready for the vote.
Okay. On the motion, Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Mrs. Oden?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
No.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hohensie?
No.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter?
Yes.
We have 2 noes and 7 yeses. The motion carries.
Okay, it is 5 minutes of 9. I was hoping we would be leaving by 9 o'clock tonight, but there are some things that are time-sensitive on the agenda, so I am looking for a motion, unfortunately, to extend for 30 minutes.
I move to extend the meeting for 30 minutes to allow us to continue to do our time-sensitive work.
So moved.
Okay?
On the motion to extend the meeting, Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mrs. Oden,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes?
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Hohensie,
Yes?
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay.
Mrs. Oden,
Mr. Kaufman?
can we have a 5-minute break, please?
No, I'd like to keep going because I'd like to get out of here by 9:30. I'm sorry. Committee on Human Resources.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I move to suspend the rules as the Human Resources Committee met today at 6:02. And I'd like to recommend to approve the administrator request to waive GCGD to hire principal substitute until we hire the new assistant principals in the elementary and middle schools.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Would you repeat the motion? I was kind of daydreaming a little bit. Sorry.
The motion was to suspend the rules and hire the assistant principals that were approved at the Committee on Human Resources earlier.
Principal substitutes.
Principal substitutes, excuse me.
Point of order, that's two separate motions.
Not the motion.
It needs to be two separate motions, one to suspend the rules, and then your motion of your recommendations.
She could have done it in one motion.
I did it in one motion.
Yeah,
I
it was
stick to
one
that one
motion.
motion.
Thank
You
you.
don't
Yeah, and
have
it
to
was-
stick
it was-
to Robert's rule to that degree where we are already running out of time and we know what we're going to do. I want to vote on this motion and move forward.
Madam President,
Yes?
the motion that I made tonight was to waiver, waivering the one principal who is not separated for a year, and to give the superintendent the right to hire them. That was the motion.
The motion?
She did say that. I didn't write it down.
Okay.
She did say waive the,
All right.
Yep.
Let's vote on it then. With
Can
that
you
waive.
please read the motion that we're voting on to suspend the rules to?
to hire assistant principal substitutes, and it was waive the, could you
One
repeat?
year, one
Wait.
year.
All right, waiving the 1-year notice, that's it, 1-year notice.
You have to waive, yeah.
Okay.
GCGD to hire principal substitutes.
To hire principal substitutes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I still don't understand what I'm being asked to vote on. We're waiving the requirement that we have a year notice to hire principal substitutes? No, okay, so I clearly don't understand, so,
The motion I made at the HR committee was to allow the administrator, the superintendent, to hire that one substitute principal who had not been separated from, retired for, there's a rule
Yes,
that you
okay.
cannot, you have to have a year's lapse after you retire to be able to be hired back again.
okay, so we're waiving that
That rule-
1-year rule, got
Rule for
it.
him.
For this one
person.
individual?
Yes.
Right.
Okay,
That was the motion that I had made.
I can get behind that,
For a substitute,
For the
substitute principal.
principals.
fine.
Substitute principals.
Okay.
Okay.
Please make sure you
Missed it.
are recognized before you speak. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying.
Roll call?
Are you ready for the vote?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mrs. Oden,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Hohensie,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver.
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Okay. Secondly, I'd like to move to accept the recommendation to approve the personnel recommendations dated September the 10th, 2018.
Second.
Just for consistency, could you add to the beginning of that, you'd like to suspend the rules from a
Okay, you want me to
meeting earlier
repeat
this
that?
evening?
Okay, I thought that was done once, and that's it. Okay, I'd like to suspend the rules. And I'd like to move to accept the recommendation to approve the personnel recommendation dated September the 10th, 2018.
Second.
Roll call?
On the motion, Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mrs. Oden,
I will abstain to avoid a conflict of interest.
Mr. Kaufman, Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Hohensie,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter,
Yes.
motion carries 8-0.
One abstention.
No, 7-0.
Wait, sit, because I abstained. Okay.
Okay.
I apologize. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yeses, 1 abstention. I apologize.
And one missing.
One missing.
And 1 no vote.
Okay.
Okay, and our next meeting is September the 24th, 2018 at 6 o'clock.
Okay. The next thing is liaison reports, and if anybody has a report, I hope you make it short. I know, I mean it. We need to move out of here. Thank you. I want to look at the new business. There is something that is time critical, and that is number 3, the approval of the Strategic Planning Advisory Committee that Ms. Porter has asked to be on the agenda. So I would like to take that up first because it is time critical.
Thank you very much. All right, we have our kickoff for the strategic planning process coming up on Thursday, and I'm asking the board to please approve the revised list of the strategic plan steering committee members. Before we go any further, I just want to say how impressed I am with this list of people. They're just amazing people, and I think it's a testament to how much our community is involved in this process, that every single person on here replied yes, that they would love to serve on this committee right away. So I think that that's really notable. I want to make sure the public knows that. I think that the makeup of this committee is a good cross-section of our school community and our Nashua community at large. In addition to these committee meetings, of which these people are members, we have an exhaustive list of focus groups that will be meeting. We have a professional survey conducted by the UNH, thank you. So I think that, and I noticed that Stacy Hines is in the audience, hi, and she's done an extreme amount of work on this. I think that I'm really proud to be a part of this, and I'm excited for it to go forward, and I would like to enthusiastically move that we approve the steering committee member list.
So moved. Second.
Is that the revised?
The revised one that you have in front of you today, yes.
Okay. Ms. Timmons seconded?
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
These two people.
Are you ready for the vote, Madam President?
Is there discussion?
Mr. Kaufman.
Thank you. I'd like to amend that motion by adding a motion to approve all currently elected members of the Nashua Board of Education as members of the Strategic Planning Advisory Committee.
What did he just say? What did you just say? I'm sorry.
I would like to amend the current motion to include, in addition, to approve all currently elected members of the Nashua Board of Education as members of the Strategic Planning Advisory Committee. If I can get a second.
Second.
May I speak to my motion?
Yes.
Thank you. So to all the people that have been asked to serve on this committee, I want to say thank you for your intent to perform public service. Please know that my objection to your service as a member of the advisory committee, what I'm trying to do here is put the board back in its place of responsibility and authority in driving the strategic planning process.
Point of order. We already voted on this.
Excuse me.
We had a vote on this before.
Excuse me,
This
I'm
very
s-
same
He has a
issue.
motion, he can
Okay,
speak to that.
all right, Madam President, but I'm just making a point of order
sorry.
that we already had this very same
May I have the floor,
motion,
please?
and we voted on it, it was
Yes.
voted down. I just
I
wanted to
hear
make
you.
that point.
I hear you, and he made a motion, and we will hear it. I hope he's brief, because we need to move on.
The point is, we have been duly elected by the people to represent the public interest. The people on this list, how well-intentioned they are, I'm sure they're well-intended, but they haven't been elected to represent the public interest. This board has. This is the last opportunity that I see to have to make this case, so that's why it's here.
Thank you. Ms. Raymond and then Ms. Hohensie.
Thank you.
Please keep your comments
Concise.
concise and short.
I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow at 10, so can we finish by then?
My kids get up at 6, so I'd like us to wrap it up not too late as well. I have a question. Should we approve Mr. Kaufman's amendment, would that then require a quorum of this board in order for the meetings to happen?
Yes, and it should be that way. It should be a public.
So we would have to have at least
Quorum of the
5 board members there?
I don't think so.
No, quorum of the committee.
Quorum
not
of the,
Not of the board.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. Hohensie?
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Ms. Hohensie and then Ms. Porter.
So I'm next. So I'm wondering why Ms. Porter and Dr. Mosley are not on the list, because I assume that they were part of the committee.
Okay, I should have typed that in, I apologize.
Okay, so that's 19 and 20, so there's 20 members.
Right.
And I also,
Yeah, we're listed as
also-
the co-chairs of the committee.
are there co-chairs? Okay, thank you. That's good to know. Also, just a curiosity, are the two Herberts, are they related, or is they just a coincidence with a very popular name?
I don't know. Mrs. Hines, she's talking. Do you know if Lori and Paul Hebert are married? They're not, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are they related?
Okay.
Aye.
Ms. Porter?
Okay.
Continue.
All right, I understand that in the past, the last time that the strategic plan was undertaken, it was done in a different manner than it's done right now. As I understand in the past, it was a committee run as a policy committee, an HR committee, and that happened the last time. However, we have a new board, we have a new administration. It's now 2018, and we're taking a different approach. I don't think that because something was done in the past in a certain way, that it obligates us to do it that way forever. And I think it's appropriate that we would take a new approach with all new people involved. We also had taken, as Mr. Guarino was referring to, a motion to accept Dr. Mosley's approach, which is this approach that he and I are co-chairs. The meetings that everything is published. People can attend meetings. I think that it's new times, and a new approach is appropriate. So I am against the amendment.
Okay.
I would like to vote on, I hope that at some point we can just vote on accepting the steering committee and moving forward with our rollout on Thursday.
Ms. Timmons?
I also support the steering committee as stated in this revised as September the 10th, 2018. We had already voted once that we would have one board member represent us. And I'm going to stick by that, and I will be voting for this revised copy, September the 10th, 2018. We don't need to go and have the whole board there, but they should be able to show up if they want to. So I think we should go on and vote on the revised copy on September the 10th, 2018. That won't be slighted one bit.
Ms. O'Hensley, do you have your hand raised?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Thank you. I also wondered, isn't Stacy Hines on the committee? She was at the last two meetings. I didn't want that to be an oversight.
She's not on the committee.
I thought she attended some of the previous meetings.
She attends, but doesn't mean she's on the committee.
I'm just asking because you and Sue Porter were not listed, so I'm just trying to get clarification. I didn't want her overlooked if she intended to be
She's
part of the
doing
committee.
some of the nuts and bolts work. She made the
Okay.
invitation, she's contacting
Communication
people,
piece of
she's
this.
doing the communication.
I'm just trying to be
No, no.
helpful. I'm not attacking anybody.
No, but
And I like what Mr. Kaufman's saying in terms of including the board, because the minutes are, are there tape recordings of these? If we can't get a meeting, the minutes are not adequate to tell us anything that goes on. So what we're getting is super summaries, and then we get to vote at the end without
I
having
think that it would
the
be easy-
minutia that we need.
well, I don't think, there's not a lot.
little
of
bit more
minutia at
detail.
that. I would be happy to include more detail in that, and we will update the ones that have been posted already to include a little bit more detail.
So they were taped?
Yeah.
Okay. that's
So
good
why
to
not,
know.
Mr. Kaufman?
so please, if they've been taped, why not ask Jackie Waters, forgive me, Jackie, to just transcribe them like she does everything else for us?
I personally don't feel that we need a transcription. Those meetings, no, Mr. Kaufman, I'm not trying to hide anything. There's nothing to go, but we need to strike a balance here. These are just organizational meetings where, did you do the invitations? Did we get them sent out? There's really no, it's just clerical stuff that's happening there. So I think that we can put a little bit more detail. I understand that you want a little bit more detail, and that's fine. But I really don't feel that a transcript is necessary.
Mrs. O'Meara, continue. She interrupted in what I was saying.
That's how we're having a
I'm-
conversation.
But I'm
Excuse
okay
me.
with it, but the
Just
board
have to
chair
make
typically
sure
isn't.
we are acknowledged to speak. Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. So while I appreciate that you're going to add some more detail, this whole thing needs to be about transparency. And the way it's been done so far to date, the several meetings that have occurred and the minutes that have been posted, they're non-informative. They may meet the minimum requirement of meeting notes by the state, but they don't take advantage of the fact that we have recording equipment in the office, we have it here, the recording equipment, the audio machine that we have is very portable. And I believe the public has a right to know, as a board member, for me to make an informed decision on this, I want to know what happened. And if we have incomplete minutes, that decision, you're making it more difficult, and people won't know where stuff came from, and they'll question the outcome. And the last thing I want to say about that is, I'm reminded of what Mr. Guarino said at an HR committee meeting back in June, where the actions of one board can be ignored by the future board. And if you don't have
Point of
the
order, I didn't say
transparent-
that.
Yeah, I'm
Don't put words in my
paraphrasing.
mouth. I did not say that.
Please,
Point of information.
please,
Guarino.
Mr.
I
Please,
can make a point of information, Robert's
no,
rules.
no,
That's not what the
please.
point of information is.
I don't like it when people misquote me.
Excuse me.
Well,
Mr. Kaufman has the
you've
floor.
misquoted
Please,
lots of
I
Go
will
ahead.
call on you to rebut whatever he says.
The point I'm trying to make is transparency will help to ensure the success of this process. And if you don't ensure there's adequate process that is transparent, you will fail.
I was next, Mrs.
Ms. Porter, I will take you, Ms. Van Twyver, after Ms. Porter responds to what he said.
Mr. Guarino, Mr. Kaufman, I already agreed to put more detail in, so you don't have to ask that again. I already said yes. The second thing is, these meetings that are happening, there is no plan yet. We haven't done the survey. We haven't had any focus groups yet. We're just doing the rollout on Thursday. So there is no plan yet. There's nothing. The meetings that have taken place have been to organize. I mean, if you've ever put on a function before, you know that you have to get the room, you have to invite the people. I mean, there's just things that have to be done just in an organizational way. So the implication that we're somehow working in secret on a plan that we haven't told you about, there is no plan yet. As soon as we do the focus groups and we start gathering data, that will be shared openly with the board.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Ms. Porter, did you say that these, do you meet in this room or do you meet in the central office?
Central office.
Well, there is recording material there.
We are recording.
Very good.
Yep.
Then my suggestion is that we do not ask Jackie to transcribe all this stuff because she's overwhelmed already, that we post the tapes, just like we do for our regular meeting, and post it under the Strategic Planning Committee on the website, and those people who want to go and listen to them can go and listen to them. The fact that you haven't started to get into the meat of things yet is fine with me, but future ones I think should be there because I would like to listen to what's going on myself because I get bored during the day.
Thank you. Mr. Guarino?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm not going to vote for this amendment, and I think the process is very transparent. And I think it's wrong to say there's no transparency. There's plenty of information on the strategic plan. Just go online. There's lots of stuff there. Dr. Mosley has already posted lots of information on this. And I want to thank Ms. Porter for all her hard work. She's doing a lot of hard work on our behalf. Okay? And there's a little bit of sour grapes here. Some people want to be the tail that wags the dog, and they want to have their finger in every pie. You can't be that way. Okay? You can't tell everybody what to do. We respect the professionalism of Ms. Porter and also the people that are on this steering plan committee, and it's not going to be a fail. It's already a success. It's a beginning success. We all have to work together to make this a success. And I want to repeat what Mr. Mosher said a long time ago. We have to work together as a team. 9 of us are here to work together and not to tell people you're going to fail. I think that's wrong. And so, again, I want to thank Ms. Porter for her hard work and a continued success with the strategic plan.
I would just like to thank Ms. Porter, Stacy Hines for all of her work, and for all the people that volunteered to be on that committee, because it is a big-time commitment. And also, as board member, I certainly feel I will have input in a focus group. So I'm not as concerned about that. I think having our community that is involved enough and care enough about our schools to put in the time into this strategic planning committee, I think we are doing the district, serving the district well. So, looking for a vote?
Are you ready for the vote on the amendment to include, approve all members of Board of Education as part of the strategic plan steering committee? Mr. Mosher?
No.
Mrs. Oden?
No.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
No.
Ms. Timmons?
No.
Ms. Hohensie?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver?
No.
Mr. Guarino votes no. Ms. Porter?
No.
We have 2 yeses and 7 noes. The amendment fails.
I'm looking at the Nashua Association of School
No, we need
Administrators.
to
Do you want to vote on the motion?
I'm
To
sorry.
approve the revised strategic plan?
Sorry.
Steering committee? Okay, on a motion to approve the revised strategic planning advisory committee as amended, Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Mrs. Oden?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
No.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hohensie?
No.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter?
Yes.
There are 2 noes and 7 yeses. The motion carries.
Thank you. I'm looking for a motion to go into non-public for the Nashua Association of School Administrators and Directors tentative agreement.
Where's Attorney
Where's the
Clausen?
attorney?
We don't have one, that's why I'm asking for a non-public. He couldn't make it. He called Dr. Mosley early was it this evening?
Over the weekend, I got
the
a
weekend.
correspondence that he had a prior engagement. He had a funeral service
Something
to
came
attend.
up.
I move to table it till the attorney's available.
Second.
On the motion to table the Nashua Association of School Administrators and Directors tentative agreement?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Thank you. How time-sensitive is this contract?
Dr. Mosley.
Couple of things. I know Attorney Clausen was involved in the negotiations. What we are prepared to share with the board, if the board, at the board's will, is that we have a cost-out sheet that Dan has prepared in terms of how much the contract was going to cost over the period of time. It's only just a 2-year deal. And in terms of the ramification of it, we have directors in the audience. In the first year, it's retro from last year because we weren't able to get an agreement. So again, people are looking to get paid in their compensation. They also, like many of our other units, are looking for some type of stability in terms of moving forward. So there is a cost-out sheet. There is some, some language that we discussed. It's in your board packet if you had some questions, but certainly we're willing and prepared to talk about the financial pieces to the contract. So, by delaying it, it means that it's going to be another 2 weeks for the directors to come forward. Also, we have to coordinate that with Mr. Clausen. I don't know his schedule, but certainly it's just going to be a delay. That's all.
Follow-up question? Yes, thank you. Is this a brand-new bargaining unit, or is this a group of people that had an old contract and now they're working without a contract?
Brand-new bargaining unit.
Okay.
Ms. Timmons.
I'd like to speak on this contract. I was part of the negotiating team, and we had a professional team with the principals and the directors. It was cordial. It was nice. It was exactly what we wanted. I think delaying it would be an injustice to them. They know what they want. We know what they want. We collaborated. It's called a collaboration, a contract between the school board and the union. There's no reason to delay this at all. I support moving this forward because it would be our work done in vain. It was not there. I was there. It was done professionally, and we have professionals negotiating on this contract. It was the best contract, brand new, that I ever been on that was as easygoing and as delightful as not these board members are. So I'm just saying to you, it's unfair to delay this contract. We need to move it forward. We do not need Tom to tell us what to do in the contract. We already did that when we was negotiating. I just disagree. We should pass that contract
Madam
today.
President?
Ms. Van Twyver.
This is a brand-new contract, right? This is the first time the board has seen it, right? Was this ever presented before?
No.
Was it ever presented to the board before?
No.
Well, I think I need to have the right to review it in its detail. I see some red lines that were crossed out, big paragraphs that were crossed out. So I don't know why it was in there before, and now it's crossed out when we haven't even seen it the first time. So I would appreciate, and besides, we've always given pay retroactive to when the contract is effective. So they have to wait a little while. That's unfortunate, but to throw this at us on a Friday and ask us to vote on it on a Monday without having all the other things that we've been looking at, I don't think is fair. And I will vote against voting for this tonight.
I have one more question.
Miss.
I know in the interest of time, would you, if we If we vote to table it, obviously we can move forward. If we decide not to table it and to go into non-public, would we need to do public comments first so that the people who are here don't have to wait for us?
I would hope so.
Okay.
Ms. Halensey?
I would just hope that this board is respectful of all the members that might have questions. What you're doing is rushing us to judgment without being able to ask our counsel questions. And I'm not saying the contract is good or bad. I'm saying we just have legal questions that we want an attorney, just like we tabled the issue earlier today. So all of a sudden, we need an attorney for that one, but we don't need an attorney for this one. You know, if you need an attorney, you should wait for the attorney. It's not the board's fault. We were told that Tom Clausen would be here tonight. It's unfortunate that he can't make it. So I'm just hoping that this board will be respectful of those of us who have questions and want to understand something before we just vote on it.
Ms. O'Gara?
May I just say something? Is it okay? Sure. So this group, they have 2 years of raises that they're waiting for this year, 18-19, and for 17-18. And honestly, the contract is just about the same as the non-affiliated handbook. I know you see a big page of all red line. It's because I started spelling out the military leave, and we're just going to follow. Tom had us put in there that we're just going to follow USERRA, the military leave. That one whole page that looks like all red. It's really all the language, and we just changed it to one statement. It pretty much is the same as the non-affiliated handbook. It's really just the raises. There's very little. If anything, I'll give you one thing that they changed. They upped course reimbursement to make it a B or better instead of being a C or better in the handbook. That's kind of an example. So I'm just throwing it out there for consideration that they waited a long time. And it's not, there's no really new wild or crazy things in there.
Madam President, may I respond? She was talking to me, it looked like.
just
If you
looking-
remembered, Ms. O'Gara, when the principal's contract came through, there were a lot of things that we had to correct on that. And it got to this level, and we had to correct them. I will not vote for this tonight. I'm sorry if it's taken 2 years or however long for these people. But I wasn't on the committee to push this through or to listen to it. And I want to make sure that things are good. And I don't think it's right for you to ask us as elected officials, what we're supposed to do here is to oversee this stuff. And I'm sorry that things move slowly, but that's the way this business has always gone, as far as I can see. So I won't vote for it. I'm sorry.
Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. I ask board members to take the time to do the due diligence, review the contract. You have questions. I have a bunch of questions. I have some concerns about some of the things in there that I want to speak to the attorney about. I'm not prepared to approve it tonight in the current form it's in. Certainly, after a conversation with the attorney and maybe after some of the clarifications were made to me, I might be. But do your due diligence. Let's wait. We have a responsibility to the public to take. We have an attorney on retainer for this specific purpose. We're paying him if he shows up or not. This is a first-time contract with this new bargaining unit. We need to do our due diligence. We're setting a precedent for the future. And I'm concerned about this board's seeming attitude of, oh, well, we'll just pass it. We'll pass it. We won't look at a contract. We'll allocate money. We'll implement a training thing, but they'll do it without ever speaking to the board. It's a very bad precedent you guys are setting tonight. Don't repeat that, what I think is bad behavior on this contract. It'll get approved. You will get your money. The district is good for it, right? I'm sorry you'll have to wait another couple of weeks, but I will vote to table this and consult with the attorney.
It is 9:30. We have gone our 30 minutes. I will not ask for another 30 minutes. I will ask only to resolve this issue, and then I will ask for adjournment. Pardon?
Are we having public comment?
We will have public comment, yes.
I'd like to approve this contract tonight.
Can we have public
Oh,
comment
okay.
first?
May I ask
You
my
have
question?
you have a motion on the floor.
I wanted to speak. Did we shut down discussion?
No, we have not shut down discussion, but we are going to finish this not by 10 o'clock, hopefully before then, and that's what I said. So I'd like to suspend the rules to have any public discussion, any public comments made now, seeing where we've already gone an extra half hour.
Do you need a motion to do that?
Yes.
I would ask for consensus.
Can we deal with it
How-
table?
Can we,
Deal with the table?
table's on the floor.
Okay, table is on the floor.
Are you ready for the vote on to table
I would like
this,
to speak.
There was a comment that was.
Madam President?
Ms. Hohensie?
Thank you. I would just like to point out that we had a teacher's contract that we've pushed through so fast, and we found errors in it. We had a principal's contract that we had different things that we had to put an addendum on, and both of these were verified by the attorney, and we still haven't seen those addendums. We wanted to look at this contract months ago. We have been asking about it. Heck, I asked to be on the negotiating team. So did Mr. Kaufman. It's not like we're pushing this away. We're asking that we can oversee the district with information and not just say, sure, go ahead. So if you want to go into non-public and vote on this, I'm leaving tonight. Do it. I'm not going to sit there and vote on something without asking my questions of the council, who we were promised would be here tonight.
Ms. Raymond?
I just want a little clarity on contract procedure for my own peace of mind and ability to make a decision on here. Because it was my understanding that there's a negotiating team that in most cases, but not for whatever reason, the principal's contract involves one of the attorneys being present during the negotiations, and that there is an attorney review of the contract, and then it comes to the board after the negotiating team and the other side have come to an agreement, and the attorney has reviewed it to make sure that there aren't any legal issues. Am I incorrect in believing? I know that that was not the case with the principal's contract, but it was the case with the teacher's contract. I believe it's the case with some of the other contracts like AFSCME and the secretaries. So on this contract, has Tom Clausen or someone else gone through it?
So I'm going to answer the question. So I shook my head when depending on the bargaining unit and depending what's being asked. So for instance, you made reference to the secretary contract. Tom Clausen is not a part of that discussion. Same thing with the principal contract as well. There were board members for this particular bargaining unit that were insistent that Tom be involved. And so we, in terms of compromise, in terms of making sure everyone was okay, Tom was asked to be part of this negotiation. Tom was part of all discussions, all conversation. They were very productive. And when I hear things, I just want to be clear. These people work with our kids every single day. And these people are a part and vital to how this district functions. And so what they're asking is that at least some consideration and some, in some ways, to make sure that that agreement that we had with Mr. Clausen, myself, and a board member, and they went back and voted with their membership, that it come back to the board for discussion. So the answer to your question, Heather, is yes.
Okay. In this particular case, Mr. Clausen has reviewed it, was part of the process. So
what does that mean?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Ms. Hohensie is next. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that Mr. Clausen was not involved at the beginning of this, and at the last time we met with him, We asked him if he would intervene on behalf of the board and attend the director's negotiations. He hadn't up to that point. At least that's what we were told, and we recommended that he help and participate, because we've been trying to push this along. So I don't think he was there from the beginning, but then again, I could just not be getting the right information.
I have a comment. He was there for every single negotiation. We went back and forth. He was there. He was at the table. He already seen the contract. He already went through the contract. The contract is good. The teachers agreed, the directors, I'm sorry, agreed on the contract. Tom Clausen also believed that the contract was good. We all agreed. Now, all of a sudden, we get in front of the board and 3 people say, oh, this is not good. It is good. And he will probably not change it. It was already negotiated on. And so why should we not vote on something that was already negotiated on it simply because they wasn't part of the negotiating team? I think we need to do that.
Sorry.
Well, we have a right to vote.
Excuse me, please. Thank you. Mr. Kaufman.
I think Ms. Van Twyver had her hand up before me.
Okay, I'm
but-
sorry, I missed it.
You know, I don't understand. Mr. Clausen was part of the teachers' union negotiation. We found problems with that had to be corrected. Mr. Clausen, the fact that he is there or is not there does not take away the responsibility of everybody on this board to review this contract and approve it. And I will not vote. I'm sorry. You can stay here until 10 o'clock. I won't vote. Or,
I'm sorry, Mr. Mosher, and then I'll get over here.
Yeah, I can't understand. We had a contract. I reviewed the contract and with the red letters and whatnot, and the parts that were taken out and that was added in. And I can't understand why we sit around like a bunch of, judges and jailhouse lawyers looking to nitpick on something that is perfectly good. I don't understand it. What is the matter with what particular items do they find that is objectionable? I couldn't find anything that I thought was objectionable. I thought that was a perfectly good contract. All it has to do is be rewritten so that we could understand it without those the red letters.
Thank you. Ms. Van Twyver, were you next?
no, I'm done. I'm really done.
Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. I partially want to respond to Ms. Raymond's question about process. Part of what's happened especially on the teacher's contract, because it involves so many, we have nearly 1,000 people covered by that contract. And a lot of time and effort goes into that, and there are periodic points in time during that stretch of negotiation where the team comes back to the board, here's where we're at, this is what's going on, much like what Mrs. Oden did in a previous couple of weeks ago where she asked the board to weigh in on things. So that has been my experience where, especially I would have thought on a new contract, one that had not existed before, that kind of dynamic would have occurred. I believe we have a public responsibility to take the time to review this. And let me point out the reality. At the end of the day, what everybody really wants is a contract that's unanimously approved by the Board of Ed. Okay, we want to show the support to the directors that we're totally behind it, that there are no reservations. Now, if you force a vote tonight, based upon what I've heard so far, and if I'm counting votes, which we do all the time, and if you're not, you should be, you're going to have at least 3 no votes. That's not what I want to present to the the Administrators Union. That's not what I want to put forward to those folks. I want them to have the full backing and no reservations of the board. Personally, I don't have problems with the money, okay? That's not my issue. My issue is in some of the text, okay? So please, do your due diligence. Let's wait until we have a meeting with the attorney when we can really go through the document from the beginning till the end, because that's the way you review a document the first time you see it. And that's where we have to go. You're not going to get a unanimous vote tonight. If you force the vote, you're sending the wrong message.
Ms. Raymond?
I only have one last thing, and it is that I'm going to take umbrage at the implication that I don't have the capability of getting a document on Friday and having read and reviewed it to an extent where I feel comfortable with it by Monday evening. So the idea that I don't know how to review a document, or that other people on the board don't have that capacity, I don't even think we should be saying those things out loud to each other, because it's very disrespectful. My question was only about the legal review, because attorneys have information and knowledge about the law that I don't have. So my question about Mr. Clausen, he knows a heck of a lot more about New Hampshire labor laws than I do. And if he is satisfied that the issues in the contract don't violate any labor laws, then I am also satisfied that they meet the requirements under the state laws and the federal laws that we would be asking him about. This idea that we would ask him for something other than his professional legal experience, it doesn't strike me as something that I would do. Having said that, each of us has to vote with our conscience based on our understanding of the contract. If people need more time to question Mr. Clausen or whomever, that's fine. But what I'm finding concerning is that there seems to be a theme of mistrusting people on the negotiating team and using board time to go back and re-examine what the people who were designated to be our negotiators have done. And I'm disappointed that this has happened. So in this particular case, people with more experience than me have indicated that they are comfortable with the contract. People with more legal expertise than me have indicated that they're comfortable with the contract. I have personally read the entire contract, and it doesn't differ significantly from any other contract that I've signed in my life as a governmental employee. So, I'm not discounting people's questions. If you have questions, you have questions. We all need to sleep at night. But there seems to be an implication that certain members are less competent than others, and I'm really getting irritated. It does not help us work together. And I'm usually the last one to speak up about conflicts on the board. I try and let this stuff wash over me because it's a waste of time. But it's becoming extremely tedious. And I don't think that the employees of the district ought to suffer because of our nitpicking and our lack of confidence in one another. It's not fair.
Ms. Timmons?
Thank you, Ms. Raymond. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Thank you very much for that. I think we should vote on that contract tonight. We worked hard on it. The directors expect it to be voted on tonight so it can move forward to the Board of Aldermen. And I think we should do it tonight. We should not be nitpicking and second guessing and all this other stuff. We need to vote on that contract. If those who do not want to vote on the contract, fine. Let them leave. But we need to vote on that contract tonight, and I think we should move the question to vote on the contract as is.
Point of order, Ms. Oden?
Mr. Kaufman?
There's a motion on the floor to table.
Table.
So we have to deal with that first. And I believe Ms. Hohensee has her
Her
hand up.
hand up.
And I would like to say at this point, a little late, motion to table is non-debatable.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Thank you. Thank you.
May I comment?
You-
I just wanted to assure Mrs. Raymond that there is no ill will over this contract towards anybody. Mr. Clausen is not infallible. Sometimes when you point things out, he thinks about them with his experience, and we might find that there's a mistake. This has happened. Doesn't mean he's bad, he's good, I'm good. It's just what you do when you share ideas and talk about something. We have questions. I'm not trying to impugn the committee. I just know that we need to talk to the attorney before we put this out. We've had problems with 2 previous bargaining union contracts this year that are still unresolved. And he was involved in those, at least the teachers.
Well, for clarity, we only had an issue with one. The other one was individual members of the board who had questions, but that the contract did not have any errors in it, and it went forward as it was written.
It lacked
teachers did.
specificity.
The teachers did, but not the principals.
Please, wait until you are recognized, one person at a time.
I was in the middle of talking.
Yes,
And I'd like to point out that Miss Van Twyver said that she was having trouble dealing with all of this and absorbing it without counsel here. She wasn't saying anybody else on the board. There was no attacks. I know everybody's sensitive, I know it's late, but I just wish there was some respect for board members who need to ask questions before we vote. There can be some mistakes in there. Nobody's infallible.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the NASA.
No.
It's been
The
tabled.
table.
No, it's a motion to table.
So we need to vote.
You said it was non-negotiable. We're not tabling it, or we are tabling it?
There's a motion right now, there's a motion to table the approval or the question of the contract for school administrators.
And we should not have had this whole discussion. We need to
Right,
just vote
right.
on it.
And,
Okay, so
Okay.
let's move the motion.
okay, the motion is to table the question of approval of the Nashua Association of School Administrators and Directors tentative agreement. Mr. Mosher,
No.
Point of order.
Mrs. Oden,
No, excuse me.
Miss-
He has a point of order.
The tabling included consultation with the council, which is not what the clerk read.
Right, the motion is to table it until we can consult with.
Exactly, but the
Okay,
clerk did
until we can
not say
consult.
that, and I just
Okay,
want to be
okay.
clear.
I
Until we
just wanted to say
consult
it out loud so we could
Thank
write it
you.
down.
Thank you for
with
your
council.
help.
Okay. Mr. Kaufman,
To table, yes.
okay. Ms. Raymond,
No.
Ms. Timmons,
No.
Ms. Hohensee,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes,
Mr. Guarino votes no. Ms. Porter?
No.
No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 noes, 3 yeses. The motion fails. Madam President?
Mr. Guarino.
I move to approve the Nashua Association of School Administrators and Directors tentative agreement.
Wait,
Second.
we already have that motion.
No, I
not
just
that
made
one.
it officially.
Oh, no. We still have to go into non-public to discuss it.
We don't have to.
No, you don't.
We don't have to.
Not anymore.
Yeah, we just discussed it.
Excuse me, just a
Second.
minute.
We didn't
If-
discuss the contract.
Excuse me. If there are people that have questions about this, people on the negotiating team might be able to answer them. So could we go into non-public and address those questions that members might have? That's what I would like to have done.
Point of order, before we do that, I thought you wanted to give the audience a chance to make comments.
And I had said that, so could we have consensus to go out of order to suspend the rules to let the people who have been sitting here since 6:30 tonight speak?
Yes.
Yes.
Anybody have a problem with that? Okay.
Adam Marcoux, 4 Jalori Lane. I'm president of the Nashua Teachers Union. I have some notes that I've taken on grading. Unless you've graded, you have no idea what it's like to grade and use X2. We have people that would rather go back to paper and pencil than deal with the monotony and insanity of X2.
so,
Thank you.
I don't care if it goes away. I do care what comes in. But you have to understand that When it came, it was an unmitigated disaster, and it continues to be. If we never had X2 again, I would do a cartwheel right here. I can't do one, but I will try. I just want to point out, and this is not my personal, I did not come up with this on my own. Someone messaged it into me. The board spent more time talking about security of one of our buildings than you did to approve a steamer at Nashua High School North. Now, they need the steamer at Nashua High School North. It was 20 some odd years old according to the documentation. That cost about the same as the security upgrades for Brentwood, where we have faculty, staff, and students. I delivered items to Brentwood for the membership that they were there. There's no lock, there's no security system, there's no camera, but we fight about it to make a point. That was outrageous. Outrageous. Yes, you did pass it, but we had to have a discussion about, well, you should have brought it up ahead of time, and then, I'm putting you on notice. My final point is there was discussion about HR about why people are leaving the district. Tonight is example number 1 of why people are leaving this district. This board should be embarrassed to represent the city of Nashua, the students, the teachers, the paras, the administration, everyone, for the antics and behavior that continue to go on meeting after meeting. We think we have a bad meeting and we go, all right, this is the bottom, we're gonna start climbing our way up. Oh, and then we get the shovel and just keep digging the hole deeper and deeper. The comments out there tonight about this board are outrageous, but they're so well deserved. Think about the example you set for everyone else, our kids, our students, because it's horrible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Dave Rossio. Good evening, I'm Dave Rossio, Transportation Director and President of the Nashua Association of School Administrators and Supervisors. I would ask you folks to entertain the contract tonight. I represent, and I proudly represent, over 50 folks in the district that work extremely hard, not always frontline with the kids, but maybe supporting the classroom or support services. We are not the enemy. We just wanted a fair contract, and I will tell you, we've been waiting a long time. We were ready to negotiate last October. We're asked to wait till after school board elections and then the appointment of committees and things. So we went months without even being able to get to a table. And then there's nothing we could have controlled about who showed up tonight, who didn't show up tonight. We've done everything we could have done on our part. So I do ask you to please entertain the contract. Just to let you know, the membership voted 30-4 to accept it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you. Okay. I'm looking for a motion to go into non-public. So any questions can be answered that can be answered?
So moved.
Second.
Under RSA what?
Under RSA, I think it was K.
Okay.
Yeah. On the motion to go into non-public, Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mrs. Oden,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Hohensee, Ms. Van Twyver. Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter,
Yes.
the motion carries 9-0.